Hello, guys. Welcome to the TubCast. Lilith and I are here again. We are, despite how busy I am, we are making this a once a Saturday occurrence. We're doing it once a week on Saturday occurrence. How's it going, Lilith?
Yep. Hey, Tiff, it's going well.
So I know we have a guest today. We'll get to the guest in a second, but I do want to have a quick announcements before we start. You have not heard from me for the entire week. I know. I have been working on the Obi-Wan Kenobi video. The video's scope has expanded quite a bit. I am now basically just talking about Star Wars, all of it. All of Star Wars. It's going to be like a 3-hour video. And Dave and I, we've both been working on it. I've been working on it round the clock. I've done nothing but eat and sleep and like do the occasional round of dishes and edit this video. It's going to be huge. So I know I've put a stop on everything else that I've been doing, and you haven't heard from me for a while. But the video's coming. You'll see it soon. And then once I put it out, I'll take a short break, and then I'll come back. So don't worry, guys. I haven't vanished. I haven't been doing nothing. And thanks for supporting me during all this time. Oh God, the first super chat. Lilith is consistently proving that she is indeed a real woman by being wrong about everything and needing the man, Dev, to correct her. Way to go. Wow.
All right.
Thanks for the $5 to say that, buddy. Okay, so
Thanks for the money.
thanks for the money. So today we are talking to a detransitioner named Richie, who has I put your Twitter handle in the description in case people want to find you. Your Twitter is TulipR. So hi Richie, how's it going?
Hi Dave, hi Lilith. Thank you very much for having me on your YouTube channels. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think it'll be very interesting. For those who have never heard of what a detransitioner is, that's somebody who was identified as trans and now no longer identifies that way and is trying to seek to reverse the social and medical changes. So I lived as a trans woman from 2014 till right up until this year, 2022. I don't believe in male to female to male. I believe I was always male, just like I believe all trans women are male who just take hormones and have surgeries, just like I did. I've had quite a radical shift in view over the course of the last few years. And early this year, I decided I wanted to detransition. So that meant, go back to my old name and a male presentation. Can you hear me okay? Is that all right?
Okay. The chat said I turned you up 5% just to see how we'll keep testing. Let us know, chat. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much me. I thought I was trans, but I don't think I am trans, and I don't think. Oh, that's spicy. Let's get into it.
No,
But
say it.
Say it. Say the spicy things. Go ahead.
Okay. I think trans and being trans is a belief structure. And I think aesthetically, when you look at it, all you've actually done, whether you're male or female, is you've had surgery on your body and took hormones, right? That's it, If you have if you've socially transitioned and stuff and people perceive you that way, that's just people perceiving you like in a deceptive manner. It could be seen. Yeah, it is deceptive.
Oh no, the fight begins already.
Yeah.
Well, so I had basically two motivations when I wanted to speak to you. One is that I've never spoken to a detransitioner before. And so I think getting that side of the conversation is probably important. And the other is that we recently, by recently I mean like in the past couple of months, we spoke to a very pro-trans person. Her name was, Katie Montgomery was her name.
Oh no.
Well, she was actually quite nice. Like we had some disagreements, but we also had some agreements as well.
Oh yeah, narcissists always are.
Is she a narcissist?
Yeah, of course she is. She's got her own YouTube channel dedicated to her, and people come in and praise her and give her compliments every stream.
Well, that's what my
How does
channel
that make
is.
you, though?
That's what my channel is, though. Everyone always compliments me.
Yeah, no, but you're not on camera, wincing your face and smiling for the camera and trying
Well,
to look.
What's wrong with being on camera and looking cute?
Well, I don't look cute. That's one thing.
Because
I'm not cute at all.
that's what it is, though, isn't it? It's less about what you're trying to speak about, and it's more about becoming a fest to praise you as an individual. Especially anyone who's got their own YouTube channel. That you should get on Katie again.
Well, I'll get
Katie,
both
no
you on. You guys
problem.
can fight it out. But
Oh God, she would love that. We've
well,
had
well,
lots
no.
of conversations.
Oh, have you? Like in
Yeah,
like
in
IRL or like on
in
stream
DMs.
or just in DMs?
No,
Okay,
no, in
okay,
DMs.
okay.
In DMs.
So
Well, for those of chat who don't know, I'm of course a trans woman, and I'm then happily transitioned, and I guess I can just argue from my point of view. I guess.
So the thing is, I want to rephrase what you said just to make sure that I know that I understand it. Okay, so you don't view yourself as MTFTM. You were always a man. You were just confused for a time.
No, I mean the whole logic with MTF is that you can go from male to female, but that's a lie. No one can do that. It doesn't matter what you take, doesn't matter how you present, what you change your name or what surgeries you have, you will always be your sex. There is no denying it. And to say MTF is one thing, and then to say MTF to M is another, because it donates that you can just switch your sex from male to female at a whim. It's not true.
Okay, that is true.
Not...
That is true. But isn't this where the sex gender distinction comes in, where you have trans people who like they obviously can't change their sex, but they feel like they have a different gender, and that's the difference, right?
But like gender to me is the belief. It's a belief that you are someone else. So someone having a gender is akin to having a religion.
Is it though? I mean,
not really.
I'm cis, right? And I've never gone through any sort of transitioning anything.
You don't need to say you're cis.
I know, but true
you
enough.
can survive on a desert island without that word.
I know what you mean, but I'm pointing it out for a reason. It's that my sex is male, my gender is man, and there's no mismatch there. But I still have a gender and I still have a sex.
I understand the trans.
Whereas I am biologically male, or I could actually be I could actually have a high chance of being intersex. My doctor implied, but it was not covered.
Right. That wouldn't mean anything. That would just mean you're intersex. But even all in
either way, no matter what, my gender and my sex is completely separate. I recognize I'm biologically male, and I'm comfortable with that. But in gender, I present as female. I dress and present as a woman, and the world has no problem recognizing me as such.
But it's
like I am legally and socially and medically recognized as a woman.
Well, you're also recognized because you pass, which is
and medically, pass, right? I'm still listed as MTF because I'm not biologically the same as a cis man, but I obviously have like differences from hormones, so I don't think it would be fair to say I'm just exactly the same.
Differences are minimal, though. It's not enough to determine a full categorization difference. It really isn't.
It's enough to determine a different category in medical sense. It's different enough that there's a checkbox.
See, I could see that being the case just because we do know that hormones, different levels of different hormones will affect various things that happen to you medically. So it may be the case that trans women, just purely in terms of what medical issues they might run into, they're different from both men and women.
So at what point did you medically become female? Like what sort of time frame would you say it was from being medically male to medically female? What was it, and what did you need to do it to make that happen?
I'm not medically female, but I am a
You just
medically
said
a
you were
mix.
before.
I'm medically a mix between both elements.
Yeah, she did say she was medically a mix of both elements. Yes.
But
I have a prostate, but that prostate is also shrunken by years of hormones, for example.
have you
And
had it lifted?
I have,
You don't need to
well,
get
yeah.
too in detail there, Lilith.
What do I need? Okay, I have,
I get it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
obviously, the breasts. You need breast cancer screenings. It's just like there's a reason why I'm not
Well,
categorized the same as just man, woman.
yeah,
It's just like
some males need breast cancer screening too, who have got
I'm
gynecomastia.
sure they do, but they don't need it on the same rate I do.
On the same rate you do. And
Yeah,
what do you
or other
mean?
people. Well, as somebody who takes estrogen, increasing my rates of possible complications as a result of having those parts or like breasts.
Yeah. There are a lot of complications, aren't there, Lilith?
Yeah, there are some.
Some. Shall we go through them?
Well, hold on. Let's.
Well, you seem okay. So you are somebody who has.
Wait. I don't want this to turn into a fight because I wanted to understand more your story before we get into anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Because
I'm trying to start a fight here. I don't know why you're being hostile.
hold on.
I'm not
You,
so
you're
sorry.
you're both being a little bit hostile. I can tell as someone who's on the outside here. But I do want to understand. So how you, I know you don't like using MTFTM. That's fair. But like how you went from being who you were before you transitioned to thinking that you need to transition and then to understanding, oh, maybe I shouldn't have transitioned and then trying to go back. I kind of want to know that story.
So I had a lot of mental health issues. I had a lot of homophobia growing up in sort of in the environment. I grew up in the northeast of England, and it was very, very unforgiving for gay people. And I knew from an early age being gay was wrong, and that started a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of issues in school. There was issues at home, and I was just addicted to the internet. And
I think we all are actually.
yeah,
Does that mean
became
that you are a gay male then?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Are you?
Am I? No, I'm bi.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. Anyway,
Mhm.
let's get back to it.
Well, no, so I just want to know if that stuck with you for the rest of your life. But so go on.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, it was completely like it ruled my it ruled my anxiety because I didn't want to be gay. I was so fucking scared of being gay, and I was looking for anything else other than that. And I was very, very depressed and very, very anxious. And by me mid early 20s, I started going down the mental health route, trying to get help for me OCD because I had a really bad obsessive compulsive disorder and like ruminations, repetitive rituals, intrusive thoughts, all the bullshit that you get with it. And I became obsessed with the idea that for us to be the way I was, something terrible must have happened when I was a child, but I just couldn't remember it. Which is a really fucked up rumination. It's like before that, I would ruminate if I was going to go to heaven or hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a question that you can answer, obviously. And
Well,
I thought, something terrible has happened, so I went to therapy, and the therapist was like, "You're very obsessive. You've got a really bad compulsive disorder, and if we feed this line of investigation any further, it'll just feed your obsession." Now, that was the result of about 6-7 months of therapy with this guy, and I started on SSRIs, which are like antidepressants, sertraline. I don't know if you've got any of this. I'm sure you do. You've got loads of pharmaceuticals. You're fucking mental.
well,
And
I have no experience with them, but I think Lilith, you were recently on them and you went off, right? Because they were kind of shitty.
oh, they're awful.
Yeah, that wasn't helping much.
Yeah.
What did help though was exercising and drinking lots of water, and putting effort to making myself look good and look pretty.
Jeez, Lilith, you sound like a right winger.
Yeah.
I guess
I
took Richie's
completely- because I
I
just
guess
wanted
to
to
Richie, I would just be deceiving people by trying to look the way I like to look.
Oh, come on, come on. We'll get to that later.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lilith. But anyway, let's go back to the story. By the end of me therapy, because he was challenging us on me irrational OCD belief, I had found a forum online about trans, and I need to turn off the chat. It's fucking distracting as fuck. Sorry, I'm just gonna minimize that window. Right.
Oh, the chat? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat and I was just like, anyway. So I'd found this forum for like trans people, and I basically told them everything that I'd thought, because I was like gay and I'd been cross-dressing since I was like 4 or 5, and I did all the stereotypical things. And they were like, "Yeah, 100%. You're trans now. You need to act on this before you regret it, because you're already like 25. You know, you're getting on, and look at us. Look at the state of us." And some of these were like in the 50s and cross-dressing and high heels and tight leather mini skirts, and I was just like, "Fuck that! I don't want to turn into that, obviously."
Ons.
So,
And so I
wait,
was going back to the
you got egg hatched then, basically.
essentially groomed, yeah. Oh, you know, I don't say that word anymore. Because that's what egg hatching is, convincing people that they're trans, which is, I know grooming's like reserved for kids, but
yeah, there's some weird. I've like poked around the egg hatching community.
Grooming is
it's a bit
usually
weird.
there's some usually sexual connotations behind it. Did they
there is,
convince
there
you
is in
because they
that
got
too.
off from it?
Well, yeah, I would say so. I started sharing pictures with them, and then in private, they started contacting me, and then I would eventually meet some of them in real life, and had a very weird, dodgy situation. But that's by the by.
Oof.
Anyway, I went back to the therapist, and I said, keep in mind, just the previous week, you'd like give us a preliminary diagnosis of like high level OCD, and I said, "Oh, ignore that. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think it's all because of gender dysphoria, and I'm 99% sure I'm trans now." And then you noted that, and then the next week I came back and said, "I'm 100% sure I'm trans," and I just had this feverish desire that I needed to transition, so I was referred to the gender clinic, and that was at the end of 2013. And I was told it's going to take 15 months. So I went back to the forum about this, and they said, "Yeah, this is basically how it works. This is what you need to do to start the blockers through the National Health Service. But to do that, there's a way to kind of like preliminarily skip the queue ish, without paying too much, because I was like minimum wage. I didn't have enough money to like pay private. So what I did is I got a payday loan and got these 2 private assessments, one on the like 18th of March and one on the 19th of March, and I got me full diagnosis for transsexualism in those 3 sessions in those 2 days, and that was sent to the gender clinic because they were private psychiatrists, but they were also approved GPs in the NHS, which is like a doctor. And because they were approved, they could give that diagnosis, which is why I did it.
So wait. It took you 3 days to get the diagnosis?
2 days. It was 3 sessions. Because on one day I went to see one psychiatrist in the morning, and then a colleague, and straight away after that appointment, because I was very, very, I was
How
like
long
upset.
in between the appointment was there?
For the first day, about half an hour, because I just drove to a colleague straight away, and then and I went up the next day, and I got the full diagnosis.
Okay.
And
just out of curiosity, do you think
the very next day then?
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity,
you got an appointment that quickly?
Yeah, that's
in Britain.
Yeah,
it's the NHS, man.
No.
The NHS is usually notorious for the opposite.
No. So that was the private clinic.
Oh, the private clinic.
To get
that's why, yeah.
To get the private diagnosis, so I could start hormones on the NHS.
Right.
So I couldn't afford the hormones privately.
I have a couple.
Like 500 quid a shot.
I do have a couple of questions. One, since they were private, how did you get a hold of this like this? You knew that this was a clinic to go to get your diagnosis. Did the people in the forum tell you?
Yeah. They basically coached us on what to do, what to say, and how to
Okay.
get it
So
exactly.
they knew like, okay, well, this doctor at this place, he's known for
Yeah.
giving out, diagnoses pretty quickly, so you should go to him, kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. And secondly, do you think it would have gone that quickly if you didn't have that 8 months of other um, psychiatric evaluation under your belt?
Hard to say, It's hindsight is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But I only did that so I could start the blocker. So that what the gender clinic said was, this isn't going to move you along any further in the waiting list, but because you've got that diagnosis, we'll at least put you on the Zoloft Gosrelin, which is the main GnRH anti-androgen blocker, and that stops the testosterone from being produced in your body. And as far as I was concerned, that was the thing that I was most obsessed about, because I was convinced that testosterone was poison and all that bullshit, and I bought into that narrative that it was destroying my body and all this sort of thing. So I was less bothered about the estrogen and more bothered about having the testosterone stopped. So when I had it stopped, I was much calmer for a bit, and then I just started going a little bit fucking psychotic, because they weren't able to give us estrogen until very late 2014, early 2015, when I'd start being seen by the gender clinic. So I had no hormones for the best part of a year, and it just sent us fucking. I was just mental. I was just crazy.
So
I wouldn't recommend that either.
What, going on blockers without taking? Yeah.
Especially for an adult, if you're going on blockers, you need to go on estrogen.
Yeah.
Or the reverse if you're going through the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They should have put you on estrogen if you were transitioning. And put on blockers.
There is a trans woman who watches my stuff, and she's not a public figure at all. So, but she's in Scotland, and she does some kind of do-it-yourself HRT. And at one point, she explained to me what the chemistry behind it is, and she outright said, "Listen, you can't go on blockers without taking some other kind of supplemental hormone. It will fucking destroy you." Which is why I think it's pretty crazy that people are saying just go on blockers, it'll be okay. Just it's like no, you can't do that.
No, I seriously think it massively contributed to what I underwent was about 3-4 years of absolute psychosis, and I was just fucking crazy. I was unhinged, doing a lot of different drugs, taking crazy risks, doing meetups with random strangers, just being a little fucking tearaway, in general. Even though I didn't need to be, I was just off.
What is it? What is a tearaway?
Tearaway is somebody who's just a little shit,
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm not sure what the American equivalent is. Badass, maybe. Who knows?
I think I get your point. Yeah.
So to make it clear, you were 25 when you sought out transitioning, and 27 when you got your surgery. From what I can understand.
I was 30 when I got the surgery.
Which surgery was it? If you don't mind me asking.
How old were you when you got the surgery?
30.
I was 30.
30. Okay, 30. Okay.
Yeah. I had what I call a sexual lobotomy. Where, yeah.
That's quite the phrase.
Well, that's basically what it is.
Listen, you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. You just tell me to shut up. What is that?
So it's basically where they cut off your balls, they invert your penis, drill a hole in your pelvis, and then shove they shove it all in just by your prostate.
So you got bottom surgery then?
Well, yeah. Why do they call it bottom surgery? Because bottom surgery is arse.
No, I get it. It's just that, okay. All right. No, I didn't know. Okay.
So the reason you have a a thread that basically went viral with explaining your experience with surgery.
Can you post that before you get into it? Just post it so I can pull up on the screen so that everyone knows what we're talking about. Because I don't have that thread actually.
transition.
And yeah, I've always personally felt that like taking hormones is one thing. Like maybe you could get off of them and it might be okay, but bottom surgery seems to be rather irreversible with our current level of technology.
It is, and I think being on the anti-androgen had a big part to play in me like stability too. But here's the thing: during that time, I was seeing a gender therapist every week,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually got seen by the gender clinic for the first time, like by the psychiatrist there in 2015. And the first question they asked me was, "Do you want gender reassignment surgery?" And I was like, "I'm not sure. Can I have some therapy to work it out?" And then I got enrolled at the gender therapist in March 2015, who I would have nearly 100 sessions with over the 5 years. And I was like, I got referred, and the referral came through, and I was like, I'm absolutely fucking not up for this. So I was like, no, don't want it. And they asked us every 6 months until about March 2017, and I'm still seeing the therapist. And I was making a lot of progress with this guy, and they basically said, if you don't want surgery, then we're gonna just discharge you. And I thought I was gonna buy myself more time, so I said, yeah, I'll put us on the waiting list. And then I was seeing the therapist, and it just got very
So,
wild. It's very hard to explain because I wasn't in a good train of thought to get there. And
so they said they were gonna stop giving you transitioning treatment, or were you
yeah,
on estrogen at that time, or were
yeah,
you
I was.
still
Yeah,
only
yeah.
on? Okay,
I was on.
so
I was on both.
that completely I disagree with. I think that's a very archaic view of viewing trans people and transness, whereas like you have to get the surgery, or otherwise you're not actually
Yeah,
trans. I
I was like,
completely disagree with that.
if you don't need us anymore, then we'll just discharge you. But I was like, I do need you anyway. And
Well, so just to be clear, we'll just discharge you means we'll take you off of estrogen and off of blockers, and you'll
no,
have
they
to.
weren't going to take us off the estrogen. They were just going to discharge us. They weren't going to change me hormones. They were just going to leave us alone. That was it.
Sorry, what? You cut out there for a bit for me.
No, 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 no. That's not what they were going to do. They were gonna release me from the service, meaning I wouldn't be able to access the therapy anymore that I was getting.
Okay, so you could still get the hormones, but you wouldn't be able to get any more therapy unless you.
Yeah,
Okay, all
I
right.
would be under monitoring though,
Yeah.
because it is complicated. But you can't just stay on hormones and they'll just discharge you. But I was making critical progress in therapy at that time. Keep in mind, I saw the therapist once every 2 weeks for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, keep in mind I had like this preliminary diagnosis of OCD, and I was worried early on that this was all very like part of the obsessions, but they were just like, no, 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 it's all cis sexism and internalized transphobia and all this bullshit. And eventually, when I did go through the surgery, and we can talk about that after,
Mm-hmm.
the lead up is an absolute blur because again, I wasn't in a good shape, but never mind. I had addiction issues too, and they knew because I was obviously going to therapy every 2 weeks. I would regularly get kicked out of therapy for being too fucked up, and they're like, "We're not going to do it if you're fucked up. You need to be sober when you come here." And they knew about me obsessive compulsive disorder, and I was on the highest dose of sertraline, and I've been on the highest dose since 2016 or something. Um, and that's just for like anxiety and stuff. So I was like, it is very questionable in how much I was able to be like, yeah, I'm not sure if I really, really want this if I was in the position to do that, but that's for the courts to decide, I suppose. Anyway, after surgery, about 3 months after, I started seeing the therapist again because obviously I was recovering.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him in 2018, I was like, dude, I think I've really fucked up here. I I've made a terrible mistake. I shouldn't have done this. And he said, oh no, what's happened is you've just had a major surgery and you've just had anesthetic, and because you lost all that blood and you had a blood transfusion, what it actually does is it lowers your serotonin levels. It's been proven. So this is all an OCD rumination, right? And And then I was like, okay, then. And then I came back to him, and I was like,
wait a second,
no,
wait a second,
I
wait a
still
second. When you say OCD rumination, was he?
OCD, obsessive compulsive
Yeah,
disorder.
yeah. Was he using your previous history with
Yeah,
OCD against you? Do you think, or like was it?
yeah, he was.
Okay,
He was
all
saying
right,
that this was a, and I've got all my medical notes
okay,
on
all right.
file. Anyway, he said that, and then I came back to him month after month, maybe for about 6 months, and said the same thing. And he was like, well, it's clear your OCD is a problem, so we'll refer you for OCD treatment. And then I got referred for OCD treatment, which I'm still waiting for. And then I got discharged in 2020, sorry, and that was it.
Okay. Before we get into anything else, just to contrast, Lilith, if you don't mind, I know the people in the chat have heard this before, but if you don't mind, could you share a bit of your transitioning story?
Oh yeah. I suppose I could start very young, when I was ever since I was a kid, it was I've I've had people who were like, oh, that's such a cute little girl, and when I heard that, I'd be really happy. And when I was a kid, when I got got my hair cut, I would always cry my eyes out, and was like, I don't want to look like a boy. I don't want to look like a boy.
To
And
be fair, I've seen pictures of you when you were younger. You look like a girl pretty much all the time. Yeah.
well, that you're over there, but thank you, Tiff.
Yeah, no problem.
But as I grew older, I was just I just figured I didn't like the changes that were happening to my body. I was masculinizing. I didn't like that. I was looking less like a girl and more like a boy. And eventually I've found out about gender dysphoria through Wikipedia and other stuff, and I tried to seek help. And when I did, my feelings were disregarded, and I was placed in conversion therapy to try to be like, oh, it can't be dysphoria. It can't be oh, he's just confused about his gender. It must be something else.
This was in
It's just,
Taiwan, right?
Yes, this was in Taiwan.
Okay.
But this was in. Remember, Taiwan is one of the more westernized and more modernized places.
Yep.
But even then, I was told, oh, your feelings were just a phase. You'll get over it, and it's actually your parents are fighting. That's the real issue, and all these different. I was fed all these different bullshit, and and I tried to suppress it for a really long time until until at one point where it's just like I just can't anymore. I tried to I had made attempts. I don't want to get too much into it. On my life a few months prior, and to like a few months just a few months after my 16th birthday, and well, eventually I was able to get help through online pharmacies, and I feel, and I took my hormones in secret because my parents were unaccepting, and
Did you
would
get
not be okay with it.
did you get the meme hormones?
I didn't get the meme hormones. I got them from a fairly reputable fairly reputable online pharmacy.
Right.
And,
Okay.
Do you self-med?
Sorry.
What'd
What?
you say?
Do you self-medicate?
Not now, not anymore. I'm talking about my past here.
Yeah.
How long you been on hormones?
I've been self-medicating since 16. I had to stop for half a year because I ran out, and then when I was 19, when I was 19, I got it through official means, and I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 28 now, so 28 minus 16.
12.
Yeah.
Right.
How's your energy levels?
My energy levels is fine.
I suppose it's still got you going then.
A lot of your problems seem to be based on SSRIs recently.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So it really was. I took some SSRIs that really messed me up, and I've been feeling a lot better ever since getting off of it. But yeah.
So the reason that I wanted you to tell your story specifically is because you both seem to have like the invert story, where Lilith, you were someone who was legitimately trans because you knew from a very young age, and you live in a society where it was hard to transition. Meanwhile, Richie,
trans, I do scoff.
Yes, I will say it and I will mean it. But Richie, you're somebody who had other problems, and you were told you were trans, and you were in a society that was too permissive, and so you have like you two are like the mirror of each other.
Well, not really. I mean, so I also had gender nonconformity as a child, and also felt that positive sense of when people mistook me for a girl, that I felt, oh, that's a nice feeling, because again, I didn't I didn't want to turn out gay. I don't know what Lilith's sexuality is, but
I'm bi.
you're bi.
I like boys and girls.
Ooh, okay. I hope you meant men and women, but whatever.
Women.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of true trans rhetoric, so let's talk about that. I don't believe that there is any true or any fake trans. What I believe is that transition is absolutely the only answer for some people. That's what I believe.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean somebody isn't a less trans. It means that some people can cope much better than others who wouldn't transition. You know, so I don't think it's a case that you are truly trans or truly not. It's like, is anyone truly Christian or a lapsed Christian? Yeah. So it's like, what makes somebody a true Christian? To never ever to follow all the Bible to the absolute T, even like the bits that are severely outdated, you know? And it's like, where do you draw the line on what is and isn't a true trans person? And I think that whole dialogue is completely unhelpful.
Okay.
Instead, it should be, what are the available options to people? Because right now, what happens is, if you have a hint of gender dysphoria, right, then that is sort of like, oh, gender affirmation treatment for you, hormones, possibly surgery, whatever. You all go in that down one route. But what we don't get is, we don't get exploratory therapy. We don't get more attention drawn to the other issues that can cause these feelings.
The reason for that is because most people who, for the vast majority, like 99%, the transitioning is the right answer. For when
That's not true, though. 99% is not a true statistic.
No, it's actually 99.4. It's the
You're
people who
teach. You're basing it on something like a Jack Turbin study, then we're gonna have words, because that is not a reputable source.
So, this is something that we talked about, Lilith, with Taftash about a month or so ago. And she's somebody who's also transitioned, and she doesn't regret her transition. But her point of view was that it was that transitioning has become so accepted that we can't even explore other possible options as treatment for gender dysphoria anymore. If you say, well, what if I develop this new treatment that doesn't involve transitioning, and that's kind of frowned upon nowadays in the medical community, and I think there might be some truth to that.
Well, it would be if he forced every of his patient through that treatment. Like, I think the treatment should mostly be up to what the patient decides. And I don't think, like, one way is always the answer. Like for some people like Richie, who obviously transitioning turns out to not be the answer for you in the end, you shouldn't have transition. I and I feel like if there's
I,
some way to prevent
so
people
I,
who shouldn't have transitioned from transitioning,
I
I
would
think
like
that would
to
be a good
interject
thing.
here,
And I don't.
Lilith. It wasn't that transition wasn't the problem. Like, the transition itself was relatively harmless because I didn't even use the women's toilets for the first 3-4 years because I was like, I'm pretty like nervous about that anyway, right? Transition wasn't the problem. It was the surgery. Like, that was the issue. And it's like, where's the evidence for these surgeries? And when you do look at the studies and you look at the studies that sort of discount it, such as the Swedish one, they get eviscerated by activists saying it's misinformation and stuff. But the suicidality of post-op trans people is huge. And that goes for males and females, you know?
That
And that's what I'm
scares.
advocating for. It's about the research into that and the hormones too. Um, like, have you ever been tested for osteoporosis?
Um, I've run, I've went through standard tests from the medical places. I don't know if osteoporosis is specifically tested, but I assume
Yeah,
it might be.
it's a huge issue for us.
Yeah, I I think it was like it was probably one of the tests they ran through. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the fact that transitioning comes with extra risks is not alone a reason not to transition, right? Like for some people it's worth it. For some people it's not. Um,
Yeah, for me it was definitely 100%, 1000% worth it.
mhm. I think I'm realizing something as we're having this conversation. I think this might be like
So,
a British American divide, because whenever I hear people from the UK talk about this, like you, Richie, I've heard Sargon talk about it a bit. I've heard like other people in the UK they're talking about this. They're almost always like if you really drill down deep, they're not against they're not against taking hormones necessarily, but they're against how permissible it seems to be, at least in the UK, to get bottom surgery. That seems to be the
Mhm.
point of contention. Meanwhile, over here, it's not easy to get bottom surgery. At least not where I am in Canada, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in the United States, where it might be easy to get on hormones. It's not easy to get those kind of surgeries here.
yeah, it's not easy to get the surgeries at all. I've
Yeah.
been waiting in referrals for one of the surgeries, not bottom surgery, for a really long
But
time, and it's
also,
just been stuck.
like, let's talk about the people who are happy with the decision to get bottom surgery in the UK. There's an issue with that alone anyway, because the aftercare is non-existent. They don't follow up with patients. Patients who have issues, the requests go unanswered. They get treated like absolute garbage in the hospital. I've got countless stories of trans women just getting treated like they should be grateful that they're being treated by in the hospital itself, and some people do really look down on them, especially in that moment.
I, you know what? I don't disagree. There's not enough support. Like, people I haven't gone through the bottom surgery myself, but I've heard stories, and people say they haven't gotten like they just got ignored in the hospital bed afterwards,
Yeah,
and
you do. And
and
again,
you
there's a
sound, you
lot of
sound like
issues with it.
so your problem isn't so much with the hormones and the transitioning; it's
So
the surgery
let's
that you
talk.
received. Because from your
I've
thread,
got
you will go into details about
Yeah,
having no sensation in
we
the
can do the thread, yeah, if
palpation.
you want. Do you feel like looking over
Hang
your
on, can
viral
I
thread?
just address the hormone thing first?
Sure, go
Because
ahead.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
think that conversation's completely over. I
Okay,
think
sure.
we've got major problems with the anti-androgens, like especially in males. It's like causing, like, I've seen lots of trans people have like really bad psychosis, and they've almost always, and I don't know if it's like a mix between the SSRIs and the anti-androgens or the ADHD meds that they get, you know. Um, but there does definitely seem to be something to it that is causing people to just be a little bit more crazy. And the long-term health impacts of a male taking estrogen is something that we need to talk about too, because there are some benefits initially. For instance, what it will do is a lot of males who take estrogen will have natural low serotonin production levels for themselves anyway. And what the estrogen does is actually influence serotonin production in the gut, and that makes you feel happier. So when new trans women take the HRT, they get that feeling of, oh, this is so much better and so much nice because the serotonin's been increased from the production in the gut. That's the feeling that is making them feeling at home and at ease. And that's a big part of the issue. And with females taking testosterone, it stops difficult periods. It can dampen a lot of the intense emotions that come with being on, like on your period, for instance. So yeah, I think there are a lot of. I think the jury is not out on the hormones, and I think we need better research over time that looks at the cross-sex impacts, like a male taking estrogen and a female taking testosterone. Like testosterone seems to do a lot more damage than the estrogen, in all fairness, especially to the to women who will have the whole endocrine system shuts down. They get all sorts of issues with atrophy and the womb and stuff that often leads to hysterectomies even post detransition. It is really, 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 really damaging, to be honest. And I think we're kind of cakewalking into it. And one of the biggest issues is the self-medding market, because you've got so many people in the community. I think there was one survey, it was like 70% of trans women were self-medding. And the self-medding isn't always 100%, you know? Your chat's getting very spicy.
Yep. They do every single stream. It's just how it is. I, so
Yes.
I know I think I know what you mean. Another thing from that Taftage conversation that we had before, Lilith, was she pulled out a study, and the study said that while it does seem to be the case that that trans women who take hormones generally report, I think it was another way of saying basically like better lives, like happier lives. The evidence for it was actually weak evidence because they couldn't isolate all the variables. So weak evidence isn't no evidence, but it's also not strong evidence.
I have to push back on the happiness is only temporary thing, though. First, maybe some people, yeah, they feel immense happiness, but that could also just because they're finally on track to being who they are. Don't you think? Like,
It's possible.
they're like, yeah, like
Um, I
overwhelmingly, studies have shown like transitioning for people who are trans improves their mental health, their ability to cope with stress, and optimism about future, and basically having hopes in general. Because like before I transitioned, there was like for me it was just like there was nothing to look forward to. There was just only I can only look forward to my body turning against me and turning in ways I don't want it to. And
right.
no matter how much I suppress it, it doesn't really go away. The feeling of dysphoria doesn't really go away. And the only thing that really, of course, I'm somebody who has transitioned for a very long time. I can say it definitely improved my overall mental health. And although I had to go take SSRIs a while back, it's mostly because my stepdad passed away, and it was a really rough period in my life. It still is, but it, I definitely don't think it's like it's only temporary or the happiness.
It's the ultimate form of dissociation transition. You don't have to be you. You don't have to deal with all your trauma. It's someone else. You get to do a different name and,
It's
all
still
those
me.
things.
It's still me.
Yeah, it kind of. I mean, be yourself. Just change your name, body, and appearance, right?
Well, my name was in. I didn't pick my name. It was like given to me, and it felt much more liberating to finally be able to pick a name that sounded right for me. And
Who picked your
it
name?
was I did. It sounded like it's like a variation of my Chinese name. It sounded so.
Okay.
So I can kind of see I can kind of see both your points, because it may very well be the case that for some people, after all the possible research is done, for some people transitioning just is the answer,
Mm-hmm.
And Lilith, you're probably one of those people. I would say, having known you for as long as I known you, it seems to be that for you it's definitely the case, but for other people it's not. And
if somebody were to force me to detransition, I would kill them.
Why is anyone forcing you to detransition? Where's this narrative coming from? Like, I really want to know.
That's not going to happen. You're in California. You're fine.
No, I'm
it's
just saying
it's
in
the most trans friendly.
in a theoretical thing where it's like somebody were to say, "Oh, I'm gonna take away your hormones because it's what's good for you," and I'm just gonna be like the same way I am with my guns from my cold dead hands.
It'll never happen because
Yeah, it won't
the vast
happen, no.
majority of people are self-medicating anyway, and you can source it externally quite easily. It'll never ever happen. It can't be regulated. It can't be stopped. People are going to do it anyway. No one's going to forcibly take away your hormones.
Also,
Well, people are gonna
Women
try
need that
though.
HRT too.
I think it's pretty easy to make yourself anyway.
No, don't do that, dude. That is fucked up.
Just
don't turn into those people.
You should turn into Demon Mama and just make it in your bathtub.
I will do it if the apocalypse comes.
but yes, so for some people it seems like that for them transitioning just is the right choice, and that's that. However, I think Richie, your point sounds like it sounds something like that there are, let's say, more less extreme cases of gender dysphoria where maybe solving their other problems, like their OCD or some other issue they might have, that would alleviate the dysphoria. But instead, they're just pushed into transitioning because that's all anyone. That's the only treatment that people consider now.
Yeah.
Is that basically how you view it?
That's my view on it. That's exactly what's pretty much happening here.
Okay, and I mean that actually seems reasonable to me. I think the difference really is just where we're living, because it's not pushed quite so hard here, and Lilith, it's certainly not pushed in Taiwan. But the UK, in the UK, maybe it's different,
Taiwan's got other problems, I hear.
Oh, you have opinions on Taiwan?
No, I don't have opinions in Taiwan. I just know it's got other problems.
the problem of Nancy Pelosi showing up?
No, I would say they've got a much bigger problem than that.
China getting ready to invade?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of fucked if they take Taiwan, because 80% of the world's chips are manufactured in Taiwan, just so you know.
Yep. We got to defend them.
Mm-hmm.
I would be more interested in defending Taiwan than I would be Ukraine, to be honest.
Sorry, I think Lilith wants to talk about.
Yeah.
No, I said we agree. Defend Taiwan.
I'll defend Taiwan.
So yeah, the interesting thing about this conversation is that once we kind of, get underneath all the public trappings of everything, I think we all mostly agree on this stuff.
I think generally most people do. Sorry, Lilith.
I agree. There's people who are not trans should not be transitioning, and people who exhibit other symptoms that could be the underlying cause of dysphoria. Maybe that
what makes someone trans, Lilith?
An intense feeling of dysphoria and wanting to transition.
That's what I did. Does that make me trans?
I don't know, maybe you were at the time, but you changed your mind.
I think I still have, obviously, a degree of discomfort with my body, and there are still times when I prefer to be seen in a feminine light. But I think, as I said, I think trans is a set of beliefs. That's it. I don't think there is any one true, genuine trans person, just like there isn't one true, genuine Catholic or
Well,
Christian.
Well,
so
hold on. Just to clarify really quickly, and you don't have to answer this. You don't have to answer this. But when you say that you still feel uncomfortable with your body, do you mean because of the surgeries that you've had, or do you mean in spite of that?
Both.
Okay.
It's very confusing.
All right.
It's like I hate what I have because it is literally savage what happened. But I also kind of resent my body too because it's kind of when that like trans male breasts are really fucking like gynecomastia unless you've had top surgery, which again you just get the chameleon eyes. It's not a good look. Um, some trans women have okay, like they develop fine, but most of us have a relatively like kind of shit gyno look about it, and I just don't like it. It feels like a moob, you know. And I didn't like even when I was thinking about getting more and more surgeries because there's always one more surgery, you know. And I was just thinking, nah, the implants are like poisonous, and I know lots of people have problems with them, and the look isn't great. And it was just like everything I did in transition just made us feel worse because I think I was captured by the idea of being in the wrong body because that was a free ticket out of all the issues that I was having, you know.
Well, okay.
I
I
but I have a feeling you might be projecting that onto other trans people though. It was like I felt this way, so it must be this way for other people who went through dysphoria. It's like there must be some sort of other underlying issue causing
I
it.
feel like you're
As
projecting that,
OCD
like,
or other things.
well,
That's what I'm inferring.
also
yeah,
in
I
the
know,
same
but
vein,
I don't.
there's something similar to that too. Is that like most people aren't attractive? You know, like most female boobs are also pretty bad looking.
Yeah, there's some comedian eyes with like plenty of
So
cis boobs.
I mean, and maybe it's just the case that like, God, I don't know how to say this. I don't think there's any way not to say it without sounding insulting, but it's okay because I'm also not very attractive. Maybe it's just the case that like for some people, um, they think they'll be more attractive when they transition and then they're not, and that is also a source of their problems. You know.
Well, yeah. What also happens is they go from a state of, you know, there might be a lot of turmoil in their life. They might have been dealing with a lot of shit from childhood, bullying, trauma, and they might be in the mid-20s by this point, and they might be in a pit of depression, and all of a sudden they find an online community, and that just absolutely welcomes them with love bombing and open arms. And obviously you have to adopt all their mindsets, otherwise you'll not last very long. And then you start with the pictures, and because you're so happy, you start smiling, and you give it another angle, and you take all these selfies, and then you share them, and everyone tells you how great you look. Of course you're going to feel more like better in those instances when you're like really fucking vulnerable. And I think that's a big part of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Oh God, how many people online are like, "You look beautiful." Now post pictures of your fucking butthole. And it's like Jesus. That seems to be something that's floating around quite a lot. Oh,
Yeah.
here's someone who I know is trans who watches. It
Oh
feels like
no.
people have just been brainwashed to think all women have perfect looking bodies and faces. It's like, yeah, I think that there are some people who transition and they still it doesn't solve everything. It's just I
Yeah,
guess yeah.
obviously.
There is that, but I mean, a lot of people do that out of low self-esteem, and then they go to these areas where they're getting like love bombed essentially, and That's certainly what happened to me, and especially when I started sharing photos and all like, oh my god, you're gonna pass so well and all this sort of shit. And
Sometimes the reverse also happens, where you seem to be love bombed. Like a person can detransition and say, "Oh, this wasn't right for me," and then they get love bombed by, say, TERFs and gender critical people into being, "Oh, you're being, yeah."
Yeah.
That I can definitely picture that happening though.
So
Like,
so
oh,
so
you were not happy with who you are. Oh, you were tricked. Uh, y- you were, and it's like you're actually a victim, but we're here for you.
mhm. So
no, you're absolutely right. There is a degree of there is a huge degree of love bombing in gender critical spaces. But what happens is, if you step out of line with some of the rad femmes, which I'm sure one or two will be listening, as I did today, then you will get vehemently punished for doing so. Some of them actually hate the transitioners more than they hate trans people. And when I first started speaking out, I got a lot of abuse from these people, unfortunately, and that was like nearly enough for me to be like, oh fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore.
Why?
And then,
Why do they hate detransitioners more than trans people?
because we're critical of everything. We're critical of all ideologies and not just trans ideology.
Is that
We're
really a
critical.
reason?
Sorry?
Is that the reason they give?
No, the reason they give is because apparently we're blaming all women for all issues, which is obviously not what I've said. But whenever you're critical of feminism, which I have been in the past, and I support people who are too, and especially radical feminism, which acts very much like gender ideology. It's just the same shade of a different coin, in my opinion. They use the exact same tactics. It's all very culty. It's all the same. It's very much the same. Just they're fighting for a different thing, and they disavowed us completely because we're like, well, we need to talk about the women in HR in companies that are peddling a lot of this shit. So, and I think like the average amount of women in HR in any company on average is like 70-80%. And a lot of these people who are pushing diversity initiatives isn't coming from men, it's coming from women. And it's coming from like this cheerleading sort of stance where they're trying to make themselves look great and supportive by propping up just about each and every individual, which is all good. But in doing so, they actually are proponents of the trans ideology. And when you look at the like, do you know like the language about menstruators and birthing people? This isn't coming from trans MTFs. This is coming from trans FTMs, right?
I
And
have heard that. Yeah. There
and the
was
thing is, the they don't like it when women get criticized because yeah, that men have done a lot of damage, right? I'm not denying that. And this is what happens. They go, so you're saying it's all women's fault? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. It's all fucking women's fault, is it? And it's like I'm saying that there is a great deal of issues, and it's very complex. And some people have, some groups are also responsible for how we've got here and have further entrenched individuals.
so I know Lilith. It was maybe a week or two ago. You posted, I think it was a 4chan post. You like a screen cap of it, and it was basically just something like there's a bunch of stuff that trans women get blamed for, but like it's everyone else doing it. So like gay men who are cross dressing, they do like the drag queen story hour thing, and yet
I'm gonna get blamed for it.
trans women get blamed for it. It's like, well, that's not fair. And then you have like trans men who do like weird pronoun stuff, or like non-binary people who do pronoun stuff, and it's like trans women get blamed for it, and you're like, this isn't fair. Everything that's happening doesn't come from trans women; it comes from like everyone
Yeah,
else.
because
The pronoun circle shit. The pronoun circle shit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like
Fuck.
it's not for the benefit of us at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because trans males are seen as the ultimate enemy in this. They get all the hate, all the blame. Doesn't matter if you do transition or not. If you've transitioned at all, you're done. right? There's no redeeming yourself. There's no appeasing them. There's nothing you can say unless you're like a good little gay detrans that disavows absolutely everything and agrees with the most extreme. But fortunately, it's just a minority of these feminists that really just need to take the meds, to be honest. And I hope some of them are listening, because really, take your fucking meds.
So you do, as far as I can tell, you do have a reputation of being someone who the right wing online likes to use for their anti-trans narratives. You're the person that's called up, say, come on my show and we'll talk about it, and you can say how evil the transes are. There's at least
Which shows.
Well, hold on. I can't actually say any shows. I'm not saying that I believe this. I don't believe this at all. I think you are a very different person from that. But there is, like, if I were to search your name on Twitter, there'd be a bunch of posts, none of them tagging you, that all say what kind of person you are, and you're not you're not that person. But there is this perception of you being that person.
Well, anyone who disagrees with anything these days is right wing, and it's like, what makes somebody right wing? I asked this on Twitter the other day, and I was like, what does it even mean anymore? Is it anyone who steps ever so slightly left of right of anything that's not absolute trans affirmation? I don't know, but all my values are fairly libertarian in nature. I do believe, for the most part, people should be allowed to be free to do what they like, but I also believe in safeguards and protecting vulnerable people too. I think that's part of a libertarian society, to protect the most vulnerable and the people who are susceptible to stupid shit, and it shouldn't be offered.
Libertarian society is not about protecting people at all. It's about giving people the freedom to do what they want and
I think
not infringing on others.
Protection. It is, absolutely. It's not a free for all. Like, go do what you like. It's not. That is a miscalculation of leftism.
It's we're not talking about leftism.
But libertarianism is leftism in essence, because that's what leftism is.
I mean, I don't agree with that at all, but this is a different conversation.
What do you think leftism
is? I don't find it very useful to argue which is left wing, which is right wing. I feel like that's all direction brained.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's why I'm not a leftist, but I'm also not a rightist. I'm just.
But yeah. I disagree in that libertarianism is about safeguarding. It's about safeguarding to a degree, but it's also like allowing people to make the mistakes, to make their choices as well as make their own mistakes, and I think that's fine. So I have a question, and you said you were uncomfortable with your body, right? It is complete. Are you unhappy with the surgery because of the state of the surgery that we have today? Or over? So yes. So over the state, over what we do today, and as somebody who hasn't gotten the surgery, which we mentioned before, the surgery is not right for me personally, but I acknowledge that it's right for some people. I do wish the surgery would be better and improved upon in the future, though, where eventually people could replicate parts through our own genes. We could already do that through certain degrees, and we could actually create if let's say in a future surgery improves to the point where we could turn somebody who is biologically male in every way, not intersex, and make them give them functional and working parts that's theirs. Would you be for that?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Probably, if anything, if I could, I'd probably just go back to what I had. I think I was having a lot more fun that way.
I guess.
I mean, I'm not saying would you go through it. I'm
No,
saying
if
would
you
it be
said if
better
you
for
present
you?
it to me, you can now have a perfect vagina or a perfect penis. I'll go for the penis.
Okay.
Right. To use the language that I know you hate, but we're going to use it. If a wizard appeared with his magic wand and said, "I can make you into a cis man or a cis woman," what do you choose?
Man.
Right. Okay. And I assume, Lilith, you would probably choose woman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's just the ultimate difference, huh?
Yeah.
I would have said woman a few years ago, but man, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a
people
lot
change
of
their minds.
I think
I
what
think that the
you know
past
what
you should
you
have
know
been
what
free
Lilith,
to make a mistake.
you know what changed? Well, you know what I think was the biggest change to me was after surgery. I'd obviously stopped taking the anti-androgen because I didn't need it anymore. That's what changed to me. And then it was almost as if like a woke up over the last 3-4 years because I wasn't on that anti-androgen, and I feel like it I don't know, it just made us think drastically differently to how I'm thinking now.
Is the idea that the anti-androgen it exacerbates dysphoria? Is that the hypothesis here?
No, I think the anti-androgen causes psychosis.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe. I don't know enough about it. I can't tell you. It's
Or people
possible.
who have got susceptibility to it are more likely. Not every single one, but I would say a lot of them. Anyone who's got like a genetic disposition to mental illness might be more susceptible to it. But then again, a lot of people who do transition have a lot of pre-existing mental illnesses. And I never understood the narrative to say that we're not mentally ill, because we clearly are. We're like, you're not a stable individual if you need to drastically change your body, change your name, change your identity. That does not paint the picture of stability over to me. That paints the picture of instability.
you keep painting it as drastic. It's not that drastic. It's like cis people change their name and identity all the freaking time.
How do you feel if somebody said your birth name?
Um, if they said it to insult me, then I take it as an insult. But if they said it in a context that wasn't insulting, I'd be fine with it.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
obviously different contexts matter.
So Lilith, my experience with you is that you're actually relatively unique among all the online trans people. You're very level-headed. You're very reasonable, and your story seems to be like textbook. But a lot of the other trans people that I've met, especially if they're like trans activists, they seem to be insane. They seem to be
Well,
they seem to be insane in a way that you specifically are not, and like is
most
alien to you.
I might seem that way only because I'm the only one that's I guess with a personality strong enough to speak out that.
I mean,
And
maybe. I think some of them are just nuts, though.
there's most I just can't let bullshit be.
Well,
I have to I have to speak up and I have to have my own voice. I can't let people speak for me. But that doesn't mean I'm the only person that's like this though. I would wager most, like, I've talked with plenty of trans people. And my experience and the way I feel is not in any way unique or special. It's in fact very common.
sure,
Most
but
and the activists, they're very loud for a reason.
there's some insane people among the trans activist crowd who truly are like I can't understand how these people survive. I don't know how they get through day-to-day life. They have some crazy fucking ideas. But yeah, like I recall there was one point at which Lance from the Surfs said that it was transphobic to consider being trans or having dysphoria as a mental condition. And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And then like another one of my trans friends, who's also not a public figure, so we're not going to name names, but she jumped in to the Twitter thread and was like, "You know, the only reason that my medical health care covers my transitioning medication is because it's a mental condition, right? Maybe you should stop pushing for things that will very clearly harm us when you don't know what you're talking about. Lance being just a cis straight guy who has enough money to live in one of the richest cities in the world. So yeah, like there seems
a lot of like cis people who like to talk over trans people. Yeah.
Yeah. So there, like, I don't think it's
Whereas
transphobic.
like,
I don't
whereas
think
like they're, oh, I know what's best for you because oh, it sounds good.
that old Gamergate image of like the white woman covering up the black woman's mouth from like way back in the day. Um, but yeah, like there was
I remember that.
that's some old lore.
I think that the artist got doxxed for it
Yep.
or got severely harassed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Proving the point.
There, I don't think it's transphobic to say that gender dysphoria is some kind of mental illness. Like it seems like, what are you treating if it's not a mental illness? You know what I mean? I don't think it, but I also don't think that it's bad to have a mental illness. So I don't view it as a negative thing. It is what it is, right?
How did we jump to, your entire body is wrong, but not your mind? What's the likelihood that every inch of your body is wrong, but not your brain? Like, what's the
Well,
likelihood?
they've done studies on trans people that show
Study.
that they've
What
done
about the
brain
Cornell
scans.
study, the meta studies? Do you want to have a conversation about them?
I have to pull them up first. You have to provide me with the links if we're going to talk about them.
We need to talk about the problem of meta studies and using
Well,
the right.
basically, those studies suggest that trans people who identify as the different sex or the different gender, people who are, this is pre-hormones, by the way, they've done brain scans on them, and they've shown that a trans woman's brain is more similar to that of a cis woman than that of a cis man. And it's
I think I've heard that before.
she's also different from that of a gay man.
So do you know, right, you're talking about the brain splice experiments, which were done in the back end of the 90s and repeated in the early 2000s in Amsterdam and Europe, right? And what they did is they looked at volunteers. I think it was like 500 people who'd given their bodies to science. Some of them who were declared themselves as not being trans, some of them saying that they were trans, some of them who waited into the deathbed. And what they did is they sliced all the bits of the brains and they put it on dishes and whatever. And they found the bed nucleus of the stria termis was supposedly be bigger and larger structures in trans-identified males in the same way as in women. But actually what that is the part of the brain that measures your threat response. And as people have said in the chat, that study has been absolutely ripped to shreds. It is not a good example.
Has it been?
Yes.
Well, I've seen multiple studies, not just that one.
Well, I would like to see.
No, let's talk about multiple studies. So
hold on, because I'd like to see both that study and what rips it to shreds. Like, how is it ripped to shreds?
I mean, if we want, we can supply all the Google links, but I don't have them on hand right now.
Okay, I mean,
I could go get them.
Can we do like a next time thing?
Sure.
Or like you could like DM them to me and I could like make a video on it someday. I just want to see it myself. I want to see what's going on.
Fuck me.
You don't have to do it right now. It's fine. We'll talk. We'll just keep talking. We can do that next time. I don't want to derail everything.
Well, either way.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like even though we're now having a
I don't think that study was torn to threads because I haven't seen any proof that it was. You're just claiming that.
There is no measurement.
Maybe I'll see the studies on that.
There is no measurement that can test for gender dysphoria that exists. It is all based on self-diagnosis.
Not yet. Maybe in the future.
Well,
so you admit there is nothing. It's just all done by self-belief. So if you're going to forum and you're very depressed,
so is like every mental condition. How do you physically test for ADHD, or how do you physically test for depression and anxiety?
Observable.
Sorry, what?
What did you
say? You can observe somebody who's got ADHD tendencies. Somebody who has.
Well, sure.
You could observe somebody who has gender dysphoria and wants to transition.
Yeah, yeah. See, I don't think that the self-reporting thing is automatically a nail in the coffin, because a lot of mental problems are a combination of self-reporting and behavior with no actual biological markers.
So it is a
Yeah,
mental problem.
Well, yeah, of course it is. I think it is anyway.
yeah. I don't think it's not a mental problem. It's
Yeah.
just, but it's one that's treated by
So why is this mental problem dealt with surgeries? Or what other mental problems are dealt with surgeries like this? Name any other mental issue that gets dealt with surgeries like this. One.
I assume you mean like as a matter of course, because there are experimental surgeries for depression and things like that. Like, but as a matter of course,
Like,
it seems to be
no, I
done. Yeah.
mean, like, what mental health conditions lead to having your body irreversibly changed?
Okay, so I can at least name one. Um, there's I forget what it's called, but there's a mental problem that leads to your body like shaking a whole bunch. I forget what it's called, but you can actually put a thing in your brain now that it generates a little magnetic field which dampens the part of the brain, and then you stop shaking.
So somebody who has a neurological condition gets a
An implant.
something to the brain. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's not a mental health condition. That's a neurological. That's something
Yeah,
that can
I
be
guess, yeah.
physical.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I guess like I
Yeah.
I think they're developing something similar for depression, where intervention is a purely mental health condition, where you could put something in your brain to cure your depression. Now I don't know if that's a good idea, because now we're getting into like Alex Jones chip in the brain territory. I don't know how I feel about this, but in terms
Going
of,
into front.
you know, but in terms of does it exist, it does seem to be on the way. Yeah.
I mean, gender dysphoria again, like, can be measured in self-esteem issues, attachment issues, trauma issues, bullying, OCD, ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
traits of autism, depression, cluster B personality traits such as
Mm-hmm.
narcissism, and well, there's like
transitioning is the only prescribed treatment right now. Is because it's the one that has been known to work and has been known to improve the lives and mental conditionings of people who go on them.
but again, you're basing
And
this.
like
Except for
and
present company. Let's be honest.
yeah, except for
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And all
maybe.
the other detransitioners that I know.
Mm-hmm. So so Richie, you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier in the conversation that there's overlap between these other mental problems, and that maybe it's the case. Maybe it's the case. This is just me spitballing an idea here. Maybe it's the case that like once those other mental problems are controlled for, if you still have gender dysphoria, then transitioning is appropriate. It's an appropriate treatment, because we don't seem to
Mhm.
have any
But I
treatment
don't.
right now that works with gender dysphoria in a vacuum. So maybe that's the case. But maybe it's the case that you also have people who have gender dysphoria, but they also have other problems. And once those other problems are treated, the gender dysphoria is alleviated. So it could be both.
I
It's
think you're
probably,
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That seems
It's not as cut
reasonable.
as dry as say, oh, so you were never really trans, you must be cis. Because that's a load of bullshit. I still had gender dysphoria, didn't I? I still transitioned, still did that for the reasons that I believed were because I was trans. But those reasons were, they were getting conflated with all the issues that I was having at the time. That wasn't really picked up. That was the problem.
Right. But that doesn't mean that transitioning is inappropriate for everyone. For some people it could be.
Absolutely not. And that's not what I'm about.
Right.
Always said
Right.
from the start.
Okay.
The problem is transition gets offered 100% of the time rather than maybe 5 to 10% of the time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you take a gender non-conforming kid these days, and any hint or sign to show is obviously something to do with being trans or being non-binary or some bullshit, and it's just like it seems counterintuitive if you want to break down the gender boundaries and all this shit to label everything as gendered behavior and to be medicalized if somebody shows non-conforming behaviors, because that's essentially what we've done. We've said you can't be a male that's soft feminine and wants to be pretty. You are actually a woman, and therefore you need to transition and call yourself a trans woman, and
Mm-hmm.
of course you feel better that way
This is where
because
you see like
being
the
a gay male in this society is absolutely impossible. It's, well, not impossible. It's very, very, very difficult.
so this is where you see like the, femboys are now trans, or tomboys are now trans, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
not really. I do like I'm in my 30s, so I do remember, in the 90s when you could be what people now call genderqueer or non-binary, and it wasn't considered
Mhm.
trans. It was just considered like it was just considered something different. It wasn't a trans thing. It was its own thing.
So
Yeah.
you would say unequivocally you'd be against banning transitioning then?
Like legally.
I think you could. I mean, what would banning transition look like? Like stopping people changing the names? Can't do
Well,
that.
you could
People
banning
taking
you could
hormones? You can't stop that. Stopping people having surgery? People could go
well
abroad for
stop
that.
stopping the medicalization of transitioning.
I think it should be met with a lot more caution than it is. Absolutely. I think I don't think the jury's out on the research and the science, and I think really we need to do a lot more studies on the longevity. So I think we all have the data. I think the UK has all the
We have
data. You know?
we have
We've been treating
already
people
done a
for
lot of
decades.
studies on that for long terms. I don't disagree that there needs to be more studies, but we there's already a
No,
lot of
but
data
the
on that.
studies that you're going to be referring to, the problem that you have with them is the meta studies, like the Cornell one, where it took 78 individual studies. They were using like sample sizes of less than 50. They were using timeframes of 6 to 12 months. Most of them weren't even verified, or most of them had really poor methodology, and they were all lumped in as evidence of this is working for everyone. But if you break down the meta study and you look at you can do it right now. Look at the Cornell meta study itself and look at the individual ones attached, and you'll see what sort of timescale they've used, the sample sizes, the methodology, and some of it's just been fucking like online surveys, you know?
Yeah, like the rapid onset gender dysphoria one. That was based on basically based on polls from anti-trans parents who already feel like their kids
But this is
are going to be
exactly the same thing
predisposed
that
a
happens
certain
in
way.
trans studies. It's like everyone is trying to confirm their bias in some way or another, but
Well,
I am
most of those
more
studies
than
are like
happy
if
to die on the
asking
hill of that
people,
and say
"Are
that the
you happy with
science
your
is not
transition?"
out on
Hold on,
this.
guys. You're talking over each other. Hold on. What were you saying, Lilith?
And most of those studies, most are just asking people, "Are you happy with what you've the transitioning?" and asking them about their experiences. And like, there's I don't know what else they could really do in terms of that.
Mm-hmm.
We could like get more sample sizes, and I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that.
So what you could do is you could, for instance, in the UK, you could take the data that's been running through the gender clinic for the last 40 years, tie that in with existing NHS records, and do your own follow-up without even contacting the patients. You know, you can easily do that. You can determine mortality, you can determine health, you can determine a lot with the data that we actually have. We don't need to do much to well. There's a lot of laws in place that are stopping with the Gender Recognition Act, which makes it very difficult to get this information because obviously it's all gender sensitive and highly protected. But if we had access to that information, you could see the data, it would speak for itself. And if it is the case that it's overwhelmingly helpful, then put it on display and make people like me shut the fuck up, right? That's all I want. I want somebody to say for certain that this is safe, this is helpful, and there is no questions about it. But
To,
we don't have that
to,
information.
to, to be more specific, are you talking about hormonally transitioning, or are you talking about bottom surgery?
Everything, hormones
Everything.
and
Okay.
surgery.
I mean, I guess the issue with that would be that it's medical data, so therefore it's private. I mean, kind of has to be private, right?
Yeah, but right now in the UK, for instance, as part of the CAS review, they actually changed the law to get the information of the 9,000 people that went through the Tavistock Institute over the last several years to determine a long-term follow-up. So they're already doing that. It's just that they need to do it for adults too. And then they'll get the real answers. And what we need is we need an independent body who is completely detached from this cause and narrative, totally independent. Don't know who the fuck that is. And then get them to scrutinize the data, get them to look through it, and get them to make a judgment. and then get others to cross-verify it and repeat it in their own countries. And when you've got several huge big studies that say unequivocally what the result is, we'll be happy, but we don't have that.
Well, you mentioned your objections with the Cornell study, but what about the Harvard one, where they took a survey which included over 20,000 patients?
Survey. Over what period did they use?
Yeah, I don't know what this is either. Sorry, this is new to me.
Here, I'll link it here.
Okay.
I mean, if we want to do whataboutisms, what about the September 2021 survey from Oxford?
Well, I don't think it's whataboutisms to bring up other pieces of data on the same topic.
It's not.
You know?
It's just yeah. This is very on topic.
I'll pull it up. Let's see. Mental health benefits associated with gender-affirming surgery. Let's see. The study examined data from the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, included 20,000 participants, 38.8% of whom identified as trans women, 32.5% were trans men, 26% were non-binary, 12 had undergone gender-affirming surgery at least 2 years prior, and 59% wanted to undergo surgery but hadn't done so yet.
So it was based off a cohort. Yeah, it had a large sample, but it was based off a cohort of people of how they felt from August 19th, 2015 to September 25th, 2015. So that was a 3-month sample size. 20,000? Sure, that's great, but the time period is laughable. Absolutely jokes to be used.
What makes the time period laughable?
Example. 3 months is nothing. People will not have the same view within 3 months.
So you think that if you came back and interviewed these people, say 2 years later, they might be radically different?
Yeah, not even that. I would say different, but what can you do in 3 months?
Yeah, fair enough.
Where's the longevity in that? And you're asking the people. If I asked 20,000 people now how they felt right now, I would get a snapshot of 20,000 people of how they feel right now. But that doesn't prove that long-term gender-affirming surgery is right. That just proves that you asked 20,000 people in that moment how they felt.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that does make sense. I guess because this is something you have to ask like over time, right? Like if you're going to do a study on somebody with cancer, for example, you're going to want to come back a year or two later and see how their tumors are doing, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably want to do something similar. That does make sense.
I hope they don't have stage 4 because you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, but
well, you brought up the numbers of trans people being interviewed not high enough. I brought it.
Well,
when with more people, you have to ask them over longer periods of time. Okay.
That's what I said from the start, Lilith. Though I said it was the sample sizes and the time periods.
Mm-hmm.
Doing an online survey of 20,000 people who are all very much probably happy with what they're doing, then that's gonna give off of a false positive in a way.
Well,
here's one from that goes from 2005.
Are you getting that information, Lilith? Are you struggling?
Come on. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily.
No, here's a different study that
okay. Well,
goes from 2015 to 2005.
You with me one-on-one.
Hold on. See, I don't necessarily view a study that lasts 3 months as useless, but I do understand that it does have like it is of limited use.
This one
it's the
conducts a study between 2005 to 2015.
Wait,
so over a 10-year study.
Where is it? I think you posted the same link.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to copy the new one. But also like the studies conversation can only go so far, right? Because we also are talking about how we feel about these things.
No, it doesn't. No, it's not a case of it can only go so far. The science literally isn't out. Like I'm more than happy to die on this hill.
Oh, you see, I actually that's also not it, Lilith. It's okay. But see, I generally agree with this though. Is that we do need more data. Like I don't think that we can definitively say whether you're correct or whether you're incorrect, Lilith, or I guess same with you, Richie. The only thing we can say is that we need more data. I think that's reasonable to say. There needs to be more studies.
And that's the problem with studies. Every study you read says, we need more studies, we need more data. And it's like, well, fucking do it then. You know what I mean? And I do think a lot of these studies are false positives. Absolutely.
I don't know about that. I don't know if
detransitioning.
I'm not sure about that one. But I do think that, like, even if here, let's put it this way, before we go down like the study rabbit hole too much, even if we came out with like a study that definitively showed, with a large sample size across a large amount of time, that transitioning just doesn't work for most people. Let's say a study said that. I mean, that would still that wouldn't, for example, invalidate Lilith's life experience, where
it would.
It would.
No, I'm not saying it would.
Okay, right. So even if for most people transitioning just didn't work, for Lilith it would, and for some people it would, and I think that's the important thing, is that
Yeah, but right now we're in a heavy trans positive environment where transition is hailed as the only answer and the ultimate answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say to people who want to think about detransition, people will match that with they view that as going back, and going back to them means going back to that state of trauma and depression and anxiety and sadness and all this sort of thing. But that's not what it is, because you're not going to undo all the personal experience that you've had.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, this one, 2,500 individuals between 2005 and 2015. Let's see. 70% have received hormone treatment. Half had undergone gender affirming surgery treatment during the 10-year period, the 10-year follow-up period. Nearly all who went through surgery also had hormone treatment. Okay, less than 1/3 had neither.
And the crux of this is it was reduced by 8%. It's a lot to go through for 8%.
Yeah. The study found the odds of receiving mental health treatment reduced by 8% for every year since receiving gender-affirming surgery.
So effective, so
well, hold on. It says 8% for every year, so that could.
It literally improves their mental conditioning, and
so
you're disregarding that.
Well, hold on.
You would do better when you're getting love bombed and you're getting reaffirmed in your community, and everyone's telling you how brave and stunning you are. Of course you will.
Well, it could be that. It could be that.
Or they could just be more comfortable with their bodies. And
it could be both. It could be both.
I wasn't love bombed. I didn't get a community saying, "Oh, how pretty you are." Although I did get people saying I'm pretty, but that's not why. That's not why I'm more comfortable with who I am.
Well, hold on. Lilith transitioned before there was a big online trans movement, so I don't think there was any grooming happening with her case.
No, I was just kidding, man.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So like 8% for every year. So let's say that for 5 years, 8%. Every year for 5 years, 8 times 5. That's a fair amount of improvement, it seems.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all at once, but it does happen over time. Let's see. Hold on. The odds of receiving mental health treatment,
read through that
surgery,
like that. But on face value, if it's reporting 8% per year, it does sound very good on face value. But
you just said it was nothing. You just said it was nothing.
No, that's what I'm saying. 8% is a pile of bullshit every year. I mean, it's not really, if you're relying on that, what 8% for every year? So you're going to say
it's higher. It's probably higher.
You'll be 100% happier if you wait. Here comes me shitty math skills.
That'd be like 12 years. 12 years, you'll be 100% happier.
Yeah, 12 years, you'll be happy in 12 years.
To be fair, Lilith, you've been on hormones for 12 years. Are you 100% happier?
Well, yeah, I am 1,000% happier than I was. I still have problems, obviously. I still have problems with anxiety and depression. Obviously, especially since my stepdad died. I'm sure everybody deals with that. I've never seen transitioning as like a cure-all. Like, this will solve all my problems. I feel like Richie has brought up that line of thought a lot, where it's like, oh, transitioning is going to solve all my problems. It's going to make all my other mental health problems disappear, and it's going to make my life good. And no, obviously that alone is not going to be be enough for somebody who is like homeless, but they're trans. They're transitioning obviously isn't gonna make them any less homeless unless they monetize their transitioning in some ways, or climbs themselves out of homelessness.
Well,
obviously. And
well, let me just jump in here because that's true, Lilith. All that is true. But Richie, even though I don't think that, and Lilith doesn't think that, you were told that by some people, right?
Told what exactly? Sorry.
That transitioning would solve all your problems.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So even though we don't think that, and it seems like reasonable trans people wouldn't say that, there are still unreasonable trans people out there who would say that.
I mean,
it solved a lot of underlying problems for me.
Mm-hmm.
But like such as like if I don't feel like this body is my own, and I don't care about it, and I don't care what happens to it.
Mm-hmm.
But once I'm able to take ownership and of my own, and finally be able to express myself and be who I want, it's just like things like it didn't solve all my problems, but it made me more comfortable. It gave me a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
It gave me a baseline to start building. And
you know what, Lilith? Me too. When I first started transitioning for those first 3 years, when I was in like total disarray, I needed to kind of go through that, and it did give us a degree of stability. But like that was just me on anti-androgens and hormones, which, to be honest,
it sounds like it helped you, though.
Sorry, that wasn't.
Sounds like it might have helped you, and
it did and it didn't. I think it helped us up to the point of surgery, right? I really do, and I think that was my problem. Like at that point, I should have got filtered out. The second that I refused the surgery, like 3 times in a row, they should have went, "Nah, I don't think we'll ask this person ever again unless they want it." Right?
I don't disagree with you. They shouldn't have pushed surgery on you at all.
But there's this weird conveyor belt, and people are like, "Oh no, you've got to wait years and years," and it's like they literally, the first question I got asked with a psychiatrist was, "Do I want genital surgery?" And that thought hadn't even crossed my fucking mind at that point. I just wanted to stop the testosterone at that point. That's all I was interested in.
That's an archaic view of treating trans people, where it's just like, oh, they put up people on, I guess, a railroad track, a metaphorical railroad track, where it's just like, hormones, hormones for a certain degree of years, and then surgery, and then this, and then that surgery. No, I much prefer a more modern, or a more liberating, individualistic way of looking at things, where surgery is right for some people, no doubt about that, and surgery is not right for some people, like me or you, although you went through surgery and I didn't, because I looked up the surgery, what it entailed, and I want something that's a little better. I guess.
So you were in a stable state of mind by the sounds of it.
Well, I am actually, Lilith. Hold on. Shit, I completely lost it. Sorry, I had a question, then I lost it. So go ahead. I'm sure it'll come back.
Okay, but anyways, like.
Sorry, did I do it to you too? I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's not your fault. I'm still coming off of the
Oh, I remember it now. It came back. Okay. So Lilith, did you ever experience anything like what Richie experienced? Did a doctor ever say, "Okay, do you want bottom surgery now?" Or was it ever pushed on you and you just refused it, or did that never happen?
Well, it wasn't so much as pushed. It was just more like expected of me, I guess. Like when are you gonna get the surgery? And it's just like, and also like I guess I bet this is something probably very different in UK, but in Taiwan they put us through an entire seminar when we when I sought out medical transitioning. I knew all these things before. It was very, and
Seminar? What was in the seminar?
oh, they put us. They brought me this They brought me and a bunch of other trans women and gender non-conforming people. They also brought like FTMs too, because there's not that many stuff like at the time. Or maybe there is more, but there's different seminars. But they basically made us go through like these lessons where they explain like the effects of hormones and surgery as a group, and they introduced like they talked like, oh, this is what we're gonna do if you consent to surgery, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and this is what's gonna happen, and although they did teach me one thing I didn't know, like the hair follicles would if you don't get rid of the hair follicles, there's a chance you could have like ingrown
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah, I know about that. I know people who are dealing with actual
So
yeah, it's pretty fucking brutal actually.
The ingrown hairs?
Mm-hmm. Inside?
Oh, okay, yeah.
so yeah, but I knew most of the stuff they taught me. Oh, they also made us pay for the seminar too,
Fucking
which
hell.
was
Gee.
so
All right.
like it
I
was
mean, I would have paid go to something like that, but there wasn't anything like that. Like, I didn't even barely get a good conversation with my surgeon. I was speaking to his nurse, who was like his secretary, and he was like this ultra autistic dude who, like most surgeons, and he just barely didn't speak.
so
And on me pre-op assessment, I was in with two other trans women, right? Because they did
mhm.
groups, they did it in like threes, and it was a really bizarre experience, right? They showed us this book of vaginas, right? And it was literally a book with pictures of vaginas. And the purpose of it was to show us that all vaginas look different. So when yours comes out different, don't worry about it. And it was the most bizarre thing, and that's it. That's what we got. A book of vaginas. It was
I
just
mean,
fucking crazy.
I'm sure you had seen porn at that point. You know, they look different. I don't know if you
Yeah,
need a book for
it
that shit. All right. Okay.
was such a bizarre experience.
Well,
But that's the extent where we got talked to.
hmm.
The thing is, I felt like they were trying to warn us a bit too much, I guess.
You think so?
Like
I
they tried
wish
to.
they did with us though, but they didn't. And that's part of the issue. Like that, no one sat me down and really, really talked about the meaning or anything like that. It was just, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Don't think so." Okay, fuck off then. And I was like, "Oh shit, I want it." And it was just like, okay. I had one or two questions with them about bleeding and hemorrhaging and regret, and they told me regret was very rare, as was bleeding, and I've got that in black and white.
Mm.
But yeah,
And I assume that you've since found that it's actually not rare.
yeah, I lost a lot of blood in surgery.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not rare.
Well, I mean, I guess having heard both of your stories, you know, if I had to choose between too little warning and too much warning, Lilith, your story is probably preferable because even though it was harder to get through, you still got through it and you still transitioned and you're still happy, right? And maybe some people who would have been like Richie would have been warded off by the stuff that you went through.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with giving people information. Like in America, we have informed consent clinics, and I think the informing part is important. Up to like obviously everything in moderation. You don't like I feel like what they did in Taiwan was a little bit too much. Where it's just like telling me information like 99% of this I already know, and I was already not planning on getting the surgery when, but they still made me sit through these seminars.
Mm.
which somebody was like, oh, it's like a cult. Oh, it's fucking. They teach medical information to people in hospitals all the freaking time. It's nothing special, but like I think a certain degree of I don't have a problem with like medical places if they want to be like if they want to walk people through and make sure they don't regret it. And I also think people who want to get this treatment shouldn't be forced to delay either.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be a lot of conversations
Like people
about
who are actually trans and like who 100% transitioning is right for them and will be right for them.
I think everyone needs to be included in this, and I think, yeah, my worry is there's just a lot of people get dragged into it when really it's probably not the best option for them. And I'm not just talking about surgery, transition in general, because it does reinforce a victim mindset. And if you're a non-passing trans person, it acts like as it's like victim synergy, as it were. It all compounds, and if you're not passing, you're obviously going to get a lot of stares. You're going to get misgendered and all this sort of shit, and that drives you deeper and deeper in the victim narrative that everything's because you're trans, and they tend to be the most vocal. And what I found with detransitioners is just about every detransitioner passed like really well. And I wonder if it was part and part of the whole you've kind of chased the dragon and you've caught the dragon sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, is transition right for everyone? Is it right if you're going to get a lot of abuse? I don't know. And some people might actually prefer that, but I
Well,
don't think it's always the right answer to everyone.
was that the case with you, that you passed really well and then you felt like you had kind
Yeah,
of done it
yeah, I
once?
blended in really well. Yeah,
So was there a feeling of, oh, I'm completely accepted as a woman now. I passed perfectly. I guess I've done this, and you wanted to go back? Like, was that kind of the?
it wasn't like that. It was more like I'm kind of bored and sick of doing this because it's not bringing us any happiness and it's just making us feel anxious when I'm out and about. You know.
Okay, I think I understand. Yeah.
I feel like you and I have very different experiences. So you
Mm-hmm.
did transition at 25 and got the surgery at 30.
Yeah.
And like maybe there should have been more safeguards with you. Like
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree.
Yeah.
There was a lot of red flags, unfortunately, and didn't get picked up. Maybe I've just got a freak occurrence case, right? Maybe. I don't
did
think
you
so.
you did mention that you brought up the fact that you had OCD and other things with them, right? But how did you present it? Did you present like did you felt like there weren't that much of an issue, or did you felt like
It was one of
it
the
was
main
there was
problems with
something?
therapy with the gender therapists that I was like, I need help with my OCD, and then it started out getting a little bit of help, and then he was like, I'm not an OCD therapist, actually. Let's talk about your gender, and that's pretty much what happened. So it kind of got lost, but I went into the gender clinic with that diagnosis of OCD.
So, but you seeked out a gender therapist.
No, I got that in with part because I said no at the surgery and I said I want more time to figure it out. That's why I got the therapy. That's why they give us the therapy, because I was considering surgery.
Right.
So, but you couldn't have gone to surgery for your OCDs.
Was no OCD
Have you
surgery?
have you attempted
I wanted.
to go
That's what I
to?
was looking for help for OCD. Yeah, and I've tried that before I went to the gender clinic, and that's where I ended up.
Like, people at the gender clinic obviously aren't gonna. They're more gonna be focused on gender dysphoria and other stuff.
Yeah.
If you,
So what is gender dysphoria when you break it down?
So I guess if you were looking for OCD treatment, how did you end up in a gender clinic?
Because I became obsessed with the idea that I was trans.
Okay, so that's where
I had
the
OCD.
So you seeked it out. So you seeked out
Yeah,
gender.
yeah, that's where the online stuff came in, basically.
yeah.
So you went into a gender health clinic, and you're like, why aren't they treating me for OCD?
Well, I didn't. I wasn't like that standoffish about it, but I was like, definitely OCD is a huge problem for me. And then it just kind of it just faded into the background as a non-issue until after surgery when I started regretting it.
But
Right.
how are they supposed to like know that?
What do you mean? How they're supposed to know it? I was diagnosed before I went in, and they knew it was like a big, huge problem. And I was on sertraline for OCD. They knew I had OCD, but they didn't want to say, maybe this is like another obsession, Richard. But they didn't do that, did they?
Right. So the story.
Did they have to?
Well, I think so actually, Lilith, because like
I
if you,
think they should, yeah.
if you're coming into a gender clinic, and they open your file up and then they see OCD, maybe the first thing they should ask is, should you really be here?
Well, trans people can have OCD. I mean,
well, sure, yeah, but also, oh, this is what I mean
having
by.
OCD doesn't mean that somebody isn't trans,
I
and
mean
like
that's true, but also gender dysphoria could be caused by it, and maybe if you alleviate the OCD,
could
you
it be?
also yeah.
Yeah, trans OCD is real.
Mhm.
Like there are people who get obsessive about the idea that they are trans, and it's an obsessive rumination, and I think that's what it was for me. I became obsessed with the idea, and I thought I was.
Yeah, and then I guess if you could, for example, alleviate the OCD, the gender dysphoria might go with it. That's certainly conceivable, at least to me.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the harm in getting like so? Ideally, as I'm waiting for the gender clinic, and they should have told me everything about the HRT, but they didn't tell us everything about the HRT. But that's another issue, right?
Wait a second,
Can live with the
wait a second, wait a second. Someone in the chat just said they asked you if detransitioning thoughts was an OCD compulsion, but they didn't ask you if transitioning thoughts were an OCD compulsion.
Yes, and regret too. Regret from surgery.
That sounds kind of ridiculous. You know, surely if you're willing to ask one, you should be willing to ask the other. Like, is it OCD?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
every time I brought up anything like that, it was just like internalized transphobia and shit. Like when I said I wanted to detransition.
I don't think you should have been dismissed if you brought it up with them.
Yeah.
I
Same.
agree. And this
Same.
is why we're taking them to court.
That's right. So, I mean, I don't know how much time you two have, but we can talk about this a bit if you want. You and also don't reveal anything secret. But you plan to take them to court?
Trying. So, me issue is we've got a limitation rule in the UK of 3 years, which means that if anything medically happens in a doctor's environment, or like a medical setting, sorry, you've got 3 years to legally address the complaint.
Mhm.
So, because my surgery was 2018 and I started the proceedings in 2022, I'm past the 3-year limitation. So the issue is trying to get it's called Section 33 of the Limitations Act. Trying to get that discounted to raise it. But part of the problem is in 2018 is when I was regretting it. I was like, I'm gonna fucking sue you, you bastards. And because I said that then,
and they have a record of it.
I was aware of it then,
Yeah.
and I didn't act on it sooner. That's what they're saying. But I was basically crushed, and I got talked out with me regrets. I don't know what the fuck they want.
So what are you suing them for?
Medical negligence.
Honestly, just
Could you specify?
Medical negligence, which means that my care wasn't managed with I basically I wasn't able. I can't give too much away on that, but
yep, that's fine.
I'm trying to word it in a way that doesn't give it away. I can't. I'm too stupid for this time of night.
I mean, I generally know what you mean. I think, and yeah, like honestly, from what you've said, it sounds like, at least from a layman's point of view, that you should you should have a case, because like it sounds. I mean, Lilith and I have both said at several points throughout this hearing your story that there are some things that we think are wrong, right? Like it shouldn't be that way, the way that it
This is
happened.
what I'm about. I'm not about stopping transition, right? I'm about making sure things like this don't happen to others, and I know it does happen to others because I'm in detrans groups, right?
Right.
And I know it's not just happening in my country; it's happening universally. It's happening all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Largely in the US. For some reason, we've got a huge amount of detransitioners in the northeastern area of the US. I don't know what's in the water or something, but like,
It's probably
especially in
just
the New England area, it's
pro-
crazy. There's
probably
like
just because
loads.
there's just tons of people there, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
What does
But
the UK have?
that's
Have like 60 million people? The US is what, 350 million? Like there's just more people, so there's more cases of everything.
331 million in the US and
Okay. Yeah.
68 million in the UK. I don't
Yeah.
know why I remember that, but I do.
Do you know Canada's?
38.3 million.
Did you just look it up?
No.
Okay.
And memorized that from an article that I did about the TIDO list, where in the last 6 years, the Trans Lives Matters list, which is a website which is all about worshipping dead people, unverified as well. That 6 people have died in the last 6 years in Canada. No one died in 2021, but the last person to die was a detransitioner who was regretting a top surgery and then killed herself in March this year.
Jesus.
So even the only person who was on the list for this year wasn't even a trans person; it was a really trans person.
Right.
So
Right. And
that's why I know that.
I do recall listening to Destiny talk to another detrans person who was FTM, and then they had basically had top surgery within like 6 months of getting diagnosed, which seems a bit quick
It's
to me.
crazy, man.
That seems a bit quick
It
to me.
is. It is. It's very
And
quick.
also they were, I think, 15 or 16, like they were underage. It's like, Jesus, that's a bit too much for me.
Was
How
that
quick did they
Chloe
get
by
it?
any chance?
Within 6 months.
Was that Chloe, possibly?
I don't recall the person's name. I just know that
Might
Destiny
be.
talked to her at one point, and she also mentioned that she has like a beard she has to shave every day now because
Yeah.
the beard just stays even after you stop taking the hormones.
Yes. That's true. You can't undo that.
Yeah.
So you said you're not against banning adults from transitioning.
No, I'm not against banning anyone from anything.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And
But how do you feel about like your story being used by people who make the argument that transitioning should be banned?
the same way I
Do you
feel
condemn that, or do you?
I feel the same way about that is the same way that trans stories are used as a catch-all to lure young kids into transition. I feel every story, every narrative will get twisted. You can't control that. You can't. Just like the whole sort of the mermaid stuff that is all like about trans kids and all this sort of shit. And it's like those stories also get twisted for those benefit, and I see it in the same way as that.
Do you think
Yeah.
it's bad?
What trans and kids? Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean, do you think it's bad that your story is being used as the case for banning transitioning for people who for it where it works?
I absolutely vehemently disavow anyone who uses my story to hurt other people. And that includes doing things that I don't believe in. Because if anyone reads my story and knows what I'm about, it is about putting the safeguards in and making sure the research is solid, which it's not. It's making sure that the warnings are in place and that we are taking a step back and looking at what's happening and what reasons, what are the other possibilities before we jump to this drastic conclusion. And I don't think going from one extreme to the other is helpful. It's like the pendulum at the minute is 100% is all on gender affirmation, and I don't think going 0% is the answer. Like that doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone. The answer is somewhere in between, right?
I think the answer is it should be for individual basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should. If you're not a fucking nutter like I was, then it should be fine. You know, you shouldn't really have many issues. But if you've got a lot of problems, addiction, and you're a crazy fuck like I was, then they should be like going, I think you've got some issues, buddy. You know, but they don't do that. It's just like, all your issues are because you're trans. All your issues are because of cis sexism and internalized transphobia.
Yeah. I think I generally agree with that. You know, everyone's story will always be used
I
by
don't
someone you
disagree
don't
with
like.
that part.
Yeah. Everyone's story will always be used by somebody you don't like. Everyone will always twist your words. You know, that's just the nature of everything. You can't
I can't
really help
control
that.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna like my narrative is perfect for them because it does confirm their narrative, and I accept that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But all I can control is what I say, and I disavow anyone who uses my story to hurt people specifically.
Yeah, I mean it's the same with like Sargon, right? Like BreadTube at this point is openly calling Sargon a white nationalist, even though he's not a white nationalist. You can
Yeah.
prove that he's not a white nationalist, but because you can take one quote out of context and then spread it around for 5 years, you know, like it. People are gonna do that. People are just gonna do that, and you can't control what others say about you. You can only control what you say and what you do.
Or you could say, don't use my story to advocate for banning transitioning.
But then I'm on a back foot constantly of having to defend myself and what idiots are saying based on what someone else has done. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be beholden to what other people do. If you've got a problem with what they say, go to them.
Well, if my story, if somebody used my story to justify,
You
you should.
You wouldn't expect anyone to come to you and say, "Hey, their story's being used." What
If
do you think?
somebody used my story to justify something I vehemently disagree with, I would
It
speak out
depends
against it.
what it was used for, because what if they're using it for something I agree with, like
So
provide medical transition under 18s, for instance?
Well, then you agree with it, right? See, here's the thing, Lilith. I kind of agree
yeah,
with you. I would disavow it once, but then I would put it behind me. I'd be like, you know what? I'm not going to apologize for this or talk about this for the next 20 years. I would say, yeah, I don't agree with this, and then I'd move on. You know. And if 5 years later someone brought it, I'd be like, hey, fuck off. I wouldn't care anymore. I'd say it once, and then I'd be done with it.
yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not saying you should always keep reiterating that I'm against this, but like, if let's say your name or your is used in like an article, and that article is specifically arguing something you vehemently disagree with, I only think it's natural to say, I disagree with this article, don't include me in it. And
I mean, true.
I think that's only natural.
There's a lot of articles now.
Yeah.
So should I do it for all of them?
Yeah. You can't do once for every single time it happens. That's just all the time, right? Like, yeah. Eventually, you have to be like, whatever. You can't control it.
If it was brought up and like if it was a big article, I think it'd be worth making a tweet about it.
Lilith, the whole purpose of that question was to put me. You didn't know you were doing it. This is just a standard TRA tactic where you get me to defend something, to put me on the back foot of something I don't agree with, to then launch in with another question, and that always makes it look like I'm constantly defending myself and have something to hide. That's the whole purpose in that line of questioning, just so you're aware of what you're doing.
I just want to make sure you're aware that people are using your stories for their purposes. I want to know how you feel about it.
Well,
and you seem to be against people using it for harm, and
yeah,
and I guess in this case, the harm would be harmful to deny people who are trans or who detransition from their transitioning. Then,
well, you know what we could do? Since we now have it on the stream, the things that you've said, Richie, we could get like a tiny little clip, and then Lilith, you could post that to your Twitter and just retweet it whenever it comes up again. You'd be like, no, this is what he means, and just retweet.
Because again, I'm not. I'm not gonna answer to anyone ever. I really do not give a shit. If it gets used that way, it's gonna get used how it gets used, and people can worry about it. I'm just gonna do what I know is right and do it in the way that does the least possible damage, but I'm not gonna sit back and argue for something I don't believe in, and it's bad faith.
See, I think I actually agree with you on this one, Richie, because for example, there was one point where Vosh called me a fascist on his stream, and I was like, well, this is kind of ridiculous. And then I did something. I replied to that, and I said, well, hold on. Here's what I actually believe. Here's
Everyone should go check it out. It's very interesting.
Sorry, what?
Everyone should look at Vosh's Kiwi Farms thread. I'm just
okay, no, we're not talking about that on this stream. Okay, but anyway, Vosh called me a fascist, and I wanted to reply to it, and so I did. And I didn't reply to it directly, but I made something on my own channel about what I believe and what fascism is, and I went into it. But it gets repeated. Every once in a while it'll get repeated, and I don't reply to it anymore. I feel like I've said my piece. If people truly care and they truly are acting in good faith, they will examine what I have to say myself. They won't just take what somebody who hates me says. And somebody who does just take what Vosh says, well, they're already predisposed against me, So I don't personally feel a need to constantly disavow. I did it once. I feel like I'm done. And if it comes up,
I'm not asking Richie to constantly disavow, though. I'm just saying.
You did.
Yes. No, I just say to do it once. Do it once.
Well, it happened already in the stream.
Well,
I mean,
what was said was
Lilith. You said ridiculous things in your time, and I mean, I've been looking at your thread on Kiwi Farms too. I don't know if you've ever seen it before.
Let's not get into that. We're not going to bring up Kiwi Farms.
Hang on, I'm not going to pull up anything and get you to defend something you said because it's not a fair faith argument.
Okay.
You want to bring up the Kiwi Farms thing?
No, we're not bringing it up. No.
The jokes they have. They have a problem with me joking.
No, we're not bringing. Let's stop.
Whatever.
No Kiwi Farms. No Kiwi Farms in this goddamn channel. Oh God. Honestly, I do personally. I enjoy lurking on Kiwi Farms sometimes. It's fun to watch like a trash fire burn, but fuck, is that
it's like to see? I love to see mentally ill people like judging other mentally ill people.
Yeah, they're all fucking insane on that site. They're all fucking insane on that site.
Oh, like me.
Fuck. But yeah, at some point, just to be clear, Richie, you've made your position very clear about how you feel about people who you don't agree with using your story for their ends. And, let's just assume that was the first. Well, hold on. Let's just assume that was the first time you ever said that. Let's just assume that. So now that it's been said, I personally don't feel like you need to say it again. Like it's done,
Yeah. We have heard it today on the what this channel is called, DevCast.
This is the TubCast. The TubCast. Well, because we're in a bathtub, right? You can see pictures of us in a bathtub right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've agreed with you mostly throughout this, Lilith, but I think this one I have to not agree with your position. Sorry.
I'm not telling him he has to constantly reaffirm. I just say yes, just do it once. And okay, if he did it in a way that's more vague than I would. Then I would more vague and step-footy than I would prefer, but I guess I'll take it. You're against that, and okay.
I don't think it was that vague. What was vague?
Well, he said using it to do harm when I said very specifically using it to advocate for banning transition. And do you think it would be harmful to advocate for banning transition?
Before that banning transition is swinging the pendulum to the other side, and that's not helpful. You can't go from one extreme to another.
Yeah. I think you said earlier, right now we're at 100%, and banning it would be 0%, and the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
No, I would say, imagine a pendulum where right now everything is 100% affirmation. Going to 0% and banning it is not the answer. It's somewhere in between. I don't think it's a ban. I think it needs care and consideration and investment. I'm actually advocating to put more money into it. to actually make sure it's right, not to propel it, to make sure it is right for people.
Yeah, I don't hear anything to disagree with. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
So I don't know how much longer you two have. I know at some point, Lilith, you wanted to go over this viral Twitter thread of yours, Richie. Do you still want to do that?
Oh, well, I'm mostly just like with that. It's mostly just like it sounded like to me your transitioning was mostly going fine, but then you had a very traumatic and horrible surgery experience, and that turned things sour, and you got rejected by the transgender community when you came out as wanting to detransition, and you seem to have gotten love bombed by people who are radically anti-trans.
Oh no, that's not what happened.
Hold on.
And
Hold on.
A lot of shit when I first started speaking out.
Just wait a second.
It was not the welcoming committee you think it is.
Sargon's here. Hey, Sargon, how's it going, man? Glad to see you're tuning in. He just called me a fascist too, so I guess that's just who I am now. Okay.
all right.
How's it going, man?
How's the hey, Carl?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we could actually consider that. I mean, if Richie, if you had just refused the bottom surgery and stayed on the hormones, and then just kind of just left the system but stayed on the hormones, do you think that would have worked out well for you? Or
oh
no?
God, yeah, I would have naturally just decided this wasn't for me and came off.
You think so?
I tried a detransition in 2015 and 2016, and then finally I tried once again in 2018. But
okay, so you had 3 detransition attempts, not just the one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it does seem like
that got put down internalized transphobia, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it does seem like that you had a much more, a much more negative experience with transitioning than someone like Lilith, for whom it's been largely positive.
Yeah, because, just went straight in a la la land after all the trauma Lilith has had, and of course you're going to feel better because you've became someone else, right, after all that horrible shit.
I went to La La Land.
No,
so are you saying?
No, Richie was in La La Land, I think is what was said. Because
no, I was being dick fam.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you were talking about my experience.
Well, man, listen, I can't tell if you two are fighting or not, all right? So.
No, I'm just spicy. I'm sorry. I'm always like this.
All right. Fair enough. Actually, Richie, were you one of the detransitioners?
It wasn't a La La Land. It was just part of reality.
Wait, Lilith.
Yes, you didn't need to change your whole appearance, name, body, presentation.
I changed it because I wanted to, and because I look a lot better now
Lilith
than I did before.
You had self-esteem issues.
And I feel a lot better, and I felt a lot more like myself.
Lilith, I heard you say Lollyland.
And this would not be okay. I said La La Land.
I heard you say Lollyland, Lilith. Is that where you went?
Okay.
Is that where you fucking went?
No, I had never been to Japan. So.
Well, I actually want to ask really quickly. Richie, are you one of the detransitioners that Sargon's talked to on his channel?
I've never talked to Sargon of COD, but what's really funny is in our D-Trans group, we've got a guy who sounds exactly like him, and it's so funny. Like literally same voice. Like if you had these guys on the same podcast, you would think it was just Sargon just having a conversation with himself.
Oh, that'd be funny, actually.
Sargon's actually secret D-Trans.
Sargon, the secret detransitioner.
Yes,
that's the new lore, guys.
It is. I'm sorry, Sargon. I blew your confidentiality.
Oh god, these two make a cute couple. They're already arguing like they're married. Nice.
Yeah, I am gay, so I suppose there's that.
Hold on, are we going back to the R Traps gay conversation from like 2015?
No, I'm just if a male with a male is gay, but whatever. Female with a female is gay.
I mean,
Nah, I would be heterosexual because I am a woman.
Oh, is this going to be this? Here's the thing.
That is that. Oof,
I mean,
oof,
I think
that
there's
need.
like, I think there's like
We need.
we need. Do you want to
We're
drill
gonna have
down
to
to
hire
that?
some people to unpack this nonsense. Like this is a lot.
Okay,
Like
hold on,
holy
hold on.
shit,
Um,
fucking hell.
I think so. Me being a cis man, okay. I think if
You're a man, bro.
yeah, I know, but I'm using the
You
language to
don't
be.
need the cis.
I
You can
no.
You can do without it.
I'm choosing to use the
You want to
language.
misgender me so fucking hard this whole stream, Richie.
What? What?
Have I?
I don't think we just want to
You,
misgender you.
I haven't misgendered you once.
I say you want to
Did that
misgender
happen?
me so bad.
I don't think he has.
I haven't misgendered you once. I was talking to Dev there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he said
Yeah.
he
No, everything's
was
about
married.
you. No.
No.
Married. Where the arguing like a married couple thing was directed to us, I think.
Oh, that was directed at us. Yeah.
Yeah. You two, not me. Yeah.
But it was more like
And then you said you were gay.
Yeah,
And
it was more like arguing with me Digimon more than a married couple.
Okay, well, hold on. This is kind of what I want to get into. So I use cis man because I want to be very specific what I'm talking about. Okay, so as a cis man, I do think that if I were to have sex with a trans woman rather than a cis woman, it would be slightly gay. Like 5% gay. I think.
Slightly.
I think like 5% gay because the rest of it looks like a woman, right? It's not fully straight and it's not fully gay. Gay men. Hold on.
Are the balls touching, Dad? Are the balls?
I know the meme, but like
the balls are slapping.
they're slapping.
Oh, okay then.
But well, here's the thing though, because like a gay man is not necessarily going to be interested in a woman with a dick just because she has a dick, right? So there's it's not just being gay. I think it's more complicated than that.
I mean, internalized homophobia can really fuck up your body, like your life. And
oh, is that what it is now?
So internalized phobia is the problem, but internalized transphobia isn't.
It's at least 40% gay, says the chat. You know what? I'll actually settle on 40% gay. Okay. I'm okay with that.
If the balls are slapping, it's slightly gay.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy sex more with men or women, Tav?
Definitely women.
Interesting. Anyway,
where did that come from?
I don't know. I was just wondering.
Okay, all right.
I'm looking at your tub picture and I'm thinking, I wonder what he enjoys. Never mind. Anyway, I'm just going off topic.
So, are you too good? You want to keep fighting, or is there?
I'm not. I'm absolutely fine. I was thinking of having a coffee break, but I don't want to interrupt your stream.
Well, we could finish it up if you like, but I know that Lilith, you wanted to go over the thread. Do you think that's still necessary?
That's not entirely necessary. I just brought it up in regards to transition regret.
Right, because you had a transition regret thread that went viral on Twitter.
Mine.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Online.
Oh, obviously not Lilith, because that would be a different story. Yeah, I did. That was when I was basically being given a very, very brutalistic overview of what I was dealing with the realities of surgery and stuff.
Okay.
And it was very dramatic thread.
Well, if you're okay with it, we could go over it quickly before we round this out, since it was brought up. And sure. I don't want to leave the chat with blue balls. Hold on a second.
We don't. I guess.
Sargon says you're definitely more than 40% gay. I prefer women. I also prefer trans women over men. So
yeah, it's easier to have gay sex when you're not viewing it as gay, I suppose. So whatever.
Yeah. So I think I'm more straight than gay on the Kinsey scale. Okay. All right. So let me bring it up real quick. Let's see. This is what you had to say, Richie. This is what irreversible means, what the reality looks like. No one told me any of what I'm going to tell you now. So this is all the stuff you think you should have been told before getting this surgery?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have no sensation in my crotch region at all. You could stab me with a knife and I wouldn't know. The entire area is numb, like it's shell-shocked and unable to comprehend what's happened, even 4 years on. I tore a sutura 4 days post-recovery. They promised to address it. I begged them in emails to fix it. They scorned me instead. Years later, I have what looks like a chunk of flesh missing next to my neo-vagina. It looks like someone hacked at me. They still won't fix it. No one told me that the base area of your penis is left. It can't be removed. So you're left with a literal stump inside that twitches. When you take testosterone and your libido returns, you wake up with morning wood without the tree. I wish this was a joke. And if you do take testosterone after being post-op, you run the risk of internal hair in the neo-vagina. Imagine dealing with internal hair growth after everything. What a choice, be healthy on testosterone and a freak, or remain a sexless eunuch. And that's something that will never come back, and one of the reasons why I got surgery. My sex drive died about 6 months on HRT, and at the time I was glad to be rid of it, but now 10 years later I'm realizing what I'm missing out on and what I won't get back. Because even if I had a sex drive, my neo-vagina is so narrow and small, I wouldn't even be able to have sex if I wanted to. And when I do use a small dilator, I have random pockets of sensation that only seem to pick up pain rather than pleasure. Any pleasure I do get comes from the prostate, that was moved forward and wrapped in glands from the penis, meaning anal sex isn't possible and can risk further damage. Then there's the dreams. I dream often that I have both sets of genitals. In the dream, I'm distressed that I have both. Why both, I think? I tell myself to wake up because I know it's just a dream, and I awaken into a living nightmare. In those moments of amnesia, as I would wake, I would reach down to my crotch area expecting something that was there for 3 decades, and it's not. My heart skips a beat every single damn time. Then there's the act of going to the toilet. It takes about 10 minutes to empty my bladder. It's extremely slow, painful, and because it dribbles, no matter how much I relax, it will then just go all over that entire area, leaving me soaking. So, after cleaning myself up, I will find moments later that my underwear is wet. No matter how much I wiped, it slowly drips out for the best part of an hour. I never knew at 35 I ran the risk smelling like piss wherever I went. Now I get to the point where I'm detransitioned, and the realization that this is permanent is catching up with me. During transition, I was obsessive and deeply unwell. I cannot believe they were allowed to do this to me even after all the red flags. And I think that's the end of the thread as far as I can see. If there was more to it, I don't have it. But that is...
there might have been 1 or 2 bits, but I got mass reported on that one. So some of it is just hidden. Yeah. I think there's an archive somewhere.
That was the archive link.
Yeah, the archive
is that the
archive there. Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there's another one to it, but it's probably got archived at that. See if there was an early one, but never mind. Yeah, I got mass reported for that one.
See, that doesn't... Like, you're not shitting on trans people, it sounds like, in this. You're just describing your own experience, and like, why would they mass report you for this?
Because it will be weaponized against them and all this sort of thing, and they will, it basically, because it's a bad experience. This is what happens when bad experiences get raised. They get either doubted, or I get called like a turf larva, are being called. Like there was this wild theory out when I first started speaking and stuff that I was actually just a radical feminist pretending to be detrans. And it was just like, yeah, and people don't want to hear it. I understand the concerns, they don't want it taken away, but here's the thing: these complications aren't actually rare. Every person I know in person, not online, in person, the trans people who have done it, none of them have sensation. Maybe 1 in 10 might have sensation. Most of them are dealing with like all sorts of issues, infections, constantly UTIs, fatigue, and I think the lack of sexual function is the big one,
Right.
And that really fucks you up.
So I mean, there is a clear difference between weaponizing this story against trans people who do actually legitimately want to do this, and then just having your story completely deplatformed such that you can't talk about it. And there's a middle ground there. We should be able to talk about what's happening to people who are transitioning, who shouldn't be transitioning, and who have these horrible effects that don't want them. We should be able to talk about that and not take away from people who believe that transitioning actually was the right thing for them. I think there's definitely a middle ground here, I think.
I definitely don't think you should have had like had that transition, had that surgery.
Thanks, Lilith. That's why I'm That's why I felt compelled to bring it. It was this, and then I shared me notes, and then they were like,
And
"This
again,
fucked up, by the way." That's what they
I
said
think
it
it's
was.
fucked up that you are pressured into the surgery, seemingly from that therapy. You should have gotten. You should have received treatment for. You
You
should
know
have kept
what?
receiving therapy despite not wanting surgery. I think that's a very reasonable thing for people to have.
What pissed me off the most was I wasn't even allowed to be regretful of it. That's
And I
what
don't think you should have been like censored in when it comes to telling your story. I feel like
I agree.
you should be able to tell your side, your experiences,
Yeah.
without people mass reporting you.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think Twitter is a bit mass report happy, and
I've got a lot of fans on Twitter. My goodness.
but yeah, I mean, like
No.
your story, Richie, doesn't delegitimize Lilith, and Lilith's story doesn't delegitimize yours. You know?
No.
Yeah. I'm going to, before we get out of here, I'm going to quickly scroll over the super chats to see if there are any questions for you, Richie.
Okay.
And if there are, we'll ask them, and if there's not, then we could end the call, and I could just do the super chats because I don't want to just keep you around, you know, if you don't want to be around. Let's see.
I didn't change my mind. That was my entire viewpoint throughout this entire
Yeah, exactly, Lilith.
video.
Yeah. Let's see.
And the West both have Richie's experience. That's statistically untrue, though. Most people are actually happy with their transition.
Why do people kill themselves post-transition?
Well,
Don't say transphobia.
because it sucks. It sucks being trans.
Well,
it fucking sucks being trans, and
it does. But here's something
and
that
there's
I've
multiple
heard.
reasons for that. And yeah, part of it is transphobia.
Well,
a large part of it is transphobia.
I don't know about that.
Or maybe
I
they have surgery and realize it was a huge mistake, and no one wants to listen to them, so they kill themselves.
See,
I do think a lot of posts.
I think some people. I think that happens too. I don't deny that probably happens, and I think that's not good either.
Well, here's the thing, Lilith. The last time I checked, which admittedly was over a year ago, but the last time I checked, rates of suicide went up after bottom surgery, not down.
17 times.
So I have to see that number. I do not think it's 17 times.
I mean,
I can picture for some. I can picture for some like they would not be happy with their surgery. I didn't have the surgery, so I wouldn't know. I'm just somebody who's we might have to bring on Katie Montgomery.
The fight, the big fight.
A big fight.
You know, Lilith,
I'll mostly stay quiet if we do that.
Yeah, you and I would have to stay out of that, you know. Or we can make it like a 2-on-2, even though like we just like we agree more than we disagree. I think, in the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Everyone wants to put us down in this camp of being something I'm not, and I'm just like, I've been through it. I know where the problems are, and if I can't talk about my own issues, can we talk about the issues that trans people have post surgery anyway, especially in the UK, which is just fucking awful.
What people usually have an issue is like.
No, I'm talking about the way they get threatened, the way they get discarded, the aftercare, the follow-up care, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, they should definitely receive the care, yeah.
This has been lovely, but I feel like I've beaten you over the head a little bit, Lilith, and I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean to be confrontational at all. But it has been a lot of fun. I really have enjoyed this.
Well, I know that you didn't want this to be a drama stream, and I don't think it was. I think we actually had real conversations about what's going on, and we got to the bottom of a few things, which was kind of nice, you know?
We had some common grounds, and we disagreed on certain things, like there needs to be some safeguards, and I don't have a problem with people exploring like certain issues underlying transition, but I also don't want there to be like, oh, you have different issues. Oh, then your gender dysphoria doesn't matter. Then it's not a problem. You don't have to transition. That's because that's what I've been through.
So we did get a whole bunch of super chats, but none of them were questions for you, Richie. Sorry. Sorry about that. So okay, I guess Lilith and I can stay on to answer the supers if you want to go, or you can stay if you want to. Either or.
I'm more than happy to pop off. It's been a pleasure, you two, and thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, take care. Bye
See ya.
bye.
And there he goes. By the way, here's the archive link. Someone's asking for it in chat. All right, so shall we? Here, I'll get rid of Richie's face. There we go. That was pretty good, eh? How are you feeling, Lilith? You all right?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah. You know,
it's not every day we have discussions where with people that we would have disagreements with. But I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's good to bring on different viewpoints and
you know
different
what?
people.
There wasn't that much disagreement actually in the end. I think that's the important thing to recognize is that not really. Like there was some, but nothing big. And we all at the end of the day we all got to the same conclusion, right? Like this kind of reminds me when we were talking with Katie Montgomery, when she said, you know, I asked her, do you think that misgendering someone should be illegal? And then she said, well, you know, if it's your coworker and you're disrupting a workplace, it's okay, fair enough, but let's take the workplace off the table. Do you think it should be illegal? And she says, well, if you're harassing somebody, you know, going to their house every day, it's okay, well, that's harassment. And then once we drilled down to the bottom and all the reasonable exceptions were put aside, she agreed that misgendering somebody shouldn't be illegal. So I think at the end of the day, we don't actually disagree that much. It's what we choose to focus on that is and what we choose to say publicly, let's say on Twitter or something. That's the difference. But in terms of what our actual values are, there's actually not much difference, I don't think.
Yeah, like we agreed on like there should be on pretty much most things.
Mm-hmm.
But we I also very fundamentally disagree with this person feels in the way that they seem to be projecting their own view or their own experiences onto me, whereas or other trans people was like the comments about, oh, it'll solve all the problems, or it was like freaking I was in La La Land because I transitioned.
well, firstly, I think some of that was just like teasing you, right? But you're that's true. You are completely correct in that I think that Richie was projecting some of his issues onto you. But I've seen you do the same though. I've seen you project your terrible experience with transitioning onto other trans people. You know, you might have been overly gatekept, and that might have influenced your view on how much gatekeeping there should be. And that's also a form of projection as well. So it's reasonable basically to have your experience and then to think, oh, that's how it is, and then, you know, view other people's experiences through that lens. It's something that everyone does, you know.
I suppose, but I never claim to like speak for detransitioners and like how they should like feel about things. It's just,
I mean, that's true.
I had like some theories about why he came to regret, but like those were just it.
That's true, but you have had a few moments where you said, well, this is what being trans is like, and here's my transitioning experience. And it's like, well, it might not be that way for everyone, you know?
Statistically, it's overwhelmingly like this, though.
Do you think statistically it's the way it was for you 12 years ago in Taiwan?
No, I'm not saying that the gatekeeping thing. I'm saying the experiences of transitioning and the lack of regret for it.
Oh yeah, that. I know. I'm talking specifically about how hard it is to get a transition. I think your experiences, even though your experience is valid, that experience has changed and is no longer the majority of people's current experiences.
I don't have a problem with the way it is in the West generally, for the most part, though. I have a problem with the way the way the British people handled it.
Mm-hmm. It seems to be too permissive in the UK, that's for sure.
Well, it was that and the combination where he was seemingly pressured into getting the surgery.
Yes, that was ridiculous in my opinion. That was completely ridiculous.
I completely disagree with that.
So let's see the supers. So the first one, does Lilith have human ears under her hair along with her cat ears? So
one set of cat ears.
No human ears?
Nah, I got human ears in real life, but like in the drawing, probably not.
Okay. Let's see here. Charlie for $2. Sargon enters the chat. Islanders versus the colonies. I think Sargon already left. Zachary plays for $5. I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more like myself. I am still depressed. Yeah, I think that's this is somebody who's also transitioned, and yeah, that seems to be normal, you know, like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve everything, but it could be a component of solving it, depending on who you are.
It's not going to solve everything, and I've pushed back on the notion that it would solve everything many times.
Oh, wait! If you don't have human ears, you only have cat ears. How do your glasses stay on?
Magnets.
Magnets? How do they work? Okay. Geez. Lest Hodson, $2. Lilith needs to cut the bad faith argumentation. Oof. I don't think you're bad faith, but I do think that you can be quite defensive. I don't blame you for it because you're trans. It's your home turf, you know. I don't blame you. TK, $5. Longitudinal studies of populations with high death rates have a massive selection bias built in. Suicidal people don't tend to live that long. I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if because the suicide rate among trans people is so high relative to the general population, long-term studies might bias specifically good outcomes because all the bad ones have killed themselves. It's a possibility, you know?
Maybe, but like if they did, then it's not an indication that they killed themselves because they transitioned either. It's usually the case of like transitioning not being good enough or in society not accepting them.
Maybe. I wonder if it's just an innate component of.
Because I guarantee you, if society was more accepting, if society was less shitty to trans people and like surgeries and medical transitioning, the process was better and like people actually cared. I mean, he brought up like doctors not caring about him after he got his surgery, and
yeah,
I've heard that from other trans women as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, doctors are not gonna be like, oh, let's push this onto you. Let's do this, do that. I think most of the time doctors just don't give a shit. You go in
the
you
U.S.
go into
specifically,
office,
right? Because his experience seemed rather different. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about in general. Like doctors, like they're not gonna be like, because you went to a gender clinic, and it's just like you went in there for a specific reason, and like they are there to do like usually they're usually there to like evaluate that, and they're not going to be experts on OCD. Maybe they should have experts on OCD in there, but it's kind of like going to a bakery and asking why isn't there like why isn't there hardware store stuff in here?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Yeah. I guess though, to go back to the original super chat, the whole longitudinal study thing, that was a study, you know, talking about does transitioning make people happier? That was the longitudinal study part of the stream. And then if you look into it, and it's like, well, here's a bunch of studies where after 10 years, the ones who reported back said that they're happier. And that might be an indication of something. But if all the ones who didn't report back, it turns out they killed themselves, well, then the study is less useful. You know what I mean? So I think
You don't know that they killed themselves.
No,
They
but
could just be
true.
people who don't feel like reporting back.
That's
And
true.
It's just like
That's
people
true.
who lost contact with the study.
Yep. It
Or
could
people
be either
changing
way,
their
right?
phone number.
Which is what
Yeah.
I agree with you, but that's why I think we need more data, because what if it is the case what if they look into it? It's like, oh yeah, they actually killed themselves. I think I'm wondering.
We do need more studies,
Yeah.
though.
What I'm wondering is, I'm wondering if, as gender dysphoria advances and becomes worse, over time, if that's, I don't know if there's like a mapped out progression of it, of that sort of disorder, but assuming that there is, as it gets worse, I wonder if it just inherently has a high suicide rate, separate from any sort of acceptance or any sort of transitioning. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
It's possible, right? Like, I'm sure there are some people who transition and they pass, and they have like supportive friends and family, and yet they still end up killing themselves because the problem is within them. It's not outside. You know what I mean?
I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure there's cases like that for anything.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, it almost seems like treating dysphoria is it's much more tricky than we're giving it credit for right now. It's not just transition. Like, I think Richie was correct on that. Is that it's more tricky than we're giving it credit for.
Yeah, I didn't disagree with him on that.
Okay, £2 from Luke. The big question: how much for dev feet pics? All right, chat. Who wants dev feet pics? What do you think?
Liz, would you say acceptance? Sorry, dev's feet pics? Yeah, post it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you just want them for free.
Well, I mean, I posted my feet pics for free before. I mean,
right.
I probably shouldn't have, but I should have probably monetized it more.
Should have monetized that shit. Okay, Lest Hodson, $2. One day we will see transitioning like we see lobotomy. I don't think so. I do think when it comes to, let's say, the bottom surgery with really bad outcomes, we'll probably see it like lobotomy in 50 years. But also, I think by then we'll have better surgery techniques.
Your chat's begging for feet pics.
They all want feet pics, eh? All right.
they want the
You all want fat guy. Listen, I only really know a couple of girls who like fat guys. Lotad is one of them. She really likes fat guys. My girlfriend's another one.
Oh, right. Was it Fat Lover 69, right?
Yeah.
Shit, didn't she get suspended?
She's back on Twitter under a different name.
What is she under?
I think it's just Lotad69. Let me see. Lotad69. Yeah. She is Lotad69. And we're mutuals on the internets.
Nice.
Let's see. Snubberth for $5. I don't trust the trans experts who majority say a child knows themselves better than anyone. I don't need a doctor to see how flawed that is. I'm kind of in the same boat as that. I've always said that transitioning itself isn't the problem. It's that the institutions around transitioning right now and the people who are in those institutions, that seems to be quite flawed, in my opinion. And so there's little public trust in those institutions. Hold on.
There's also very little experiences with those institutions, so like most people don't have to go through that institution.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like for the people for whom it worked, we don't expect people who receive successful heart surgeries to talk about how great their heart surgery was constantly. As but people who had botched heart surgeries, if they didn't die, they would probably be very upset about it and talk about it a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
just like
when you're not on the internet, Lilith, how often do you talk about your great experience transitioning in real life?
Never.
Yeah,
never.
Exactly, right? Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I might mention like feeling sexy and like being being happy and like, oh, if I would mention if it was brought up, but like, I don't have to be like, I don't have to tell people who are telling me, oh, this, you should be protected. You should be protected from transitioning, and we should put you through forced conversion therapy, which, and all sorts of shit. It's just like, no, fuck you.
No, I agree.
And that's not what Richie is suggesting.
Yes, yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that swollen?
He wasn't. So.
Whatever happened to that swollen can of pineapples you had in your cupboard? I sent it to Steve MRE 1989. I mailed it off to him.
Is it still good?
No, that was like 25 years old. That can. So I mailed it to him.
You mailed it to him?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of law against poisoning people?
I think he's immune. I think he's immune to botulism. Here, it's 6 o'clock. I gotta finish this up. So let's get through these real quick.
Yeah, let's go.
Zachary Plays for $10. There was a point in history where culture was turned into an industry. Culture is bad, not good. It's basically completely taking away individuality because it's all about identity and not character. I'm not sure if I follow. I don't know if I agree with that, but thank you for the money. Ancient Millennial for $5. At a party once, we were all saying what gender we'd prefer to be. I was the only person who said male. Oh, wait. All else gave social reasons. I said Gandalf. So you want to be a male because of Gandalf? Is that the plan? TK for $5. I would be more supportive of the hormone thing if it weren't so hard for a regular guy to get TRT. If you get to pick your testosterone level, so should I. Is this where you make steroids legal?
You know what? I feel like anybody should be able to put whatever the fuck they want in their own bodies.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm extremely libertarian on self-medication. It's just like, yeah, go ahead. I think steroids should be illegal.
All right. Zachary Plays for $10. My prayers go out to those misled by degenerates. An empire becomes obsessed with stuff like this, and then it collapses. All I'm hearing is cope. You can hear the guilt in the voice. I think this is from earlier when Richie was describing his story. Man, there's a weird line to follow on this. You know, I don't think transitioning should be encouraged, but I also don't think it should be banned. You know, it should be one of those things where like it's there in case you need it, but we shouldn't be saying yes, do this. This is for you. Do it. It's like I don't think it should be encouraged.
But what if in the future we could just press a button and would just transform a person into a different gender, completely different sex, completely?
Right.
Would it be okay to like normalize it then?
Well, at that point, would it matter, right? Because there's no like medical issues stemming out of it. You could just and also you could go like
wouldn't that be ideal though?
You could go back and forth every day if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, why not? If people wanted to do that, I feel like that should be like the ideal future we strive for, where people are given more freedom to be who they want to be.
Well, see, I view it the same way as abortion, right? Like you shouldn't, it should be available, but you shouldn't tell someone to go and do it for fun. Like,
yeah,
it's a more serious thing than that. Yeah.
Transitioning is a serious thing. Yeah. Like, there's definitely like health concerns to think about, and the informed part of the informed consent is important. I don't think it should be like a gatekeeping, where it's like where we force people to wait. And it's just like, are you sure? Are you really, really, really sure? Are you really, 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 really sure?
Okay, we don't have enough time. We gotta get through this.
I don't feel like we have to do that with adults.
Yeah.
If somebody like Richie, he expressed his underlying OCD. If he wanted to address that, I don't know. Going to a gender health clinic might not have been the best place to go for it.
He seemed like he wasn't of sound mind. Like the description of his story, it's like sometimes you could be so fucked up with other mental problems that maybe you can't make those decisions yourself, you know.
Maybe.
Let's see, oversized trash pan at $10.
But I think generally, like, doctors should respect adults and their choices.
I agree with that.
Like,
Yeah.
They're also like not mind readers either.
Yeah.
So it's like unless you explicitly told them like this problem is bugging me, that problem is bugging me, and from it sounds like he did bring it up and he was like disregarded at certain points, and I don't think that's fine if his story checks out.
Safety zoom. Don't attack people no longer here, Lilith. That's actually true.
Was I attacking him? I was pretty much defending him.
Okay.
After this.
Here, I'm running out of time. We have to get through these. I'm running out of time. Sorry, just there's little time left for me.
Identified as best adult dating site.
Oversized trash pan at $10. You can't universalize personal experiences onto a system that depends so heavily on jurisdiction, time period, and even your individual doctor. That goes for both trans and detrans. I actually agree with that. That was my point with you and with Richie. It's like, you know, the UK sounds pretty bad for being too permissive, but that's not everywhere. Taiwan sounds like it's not permissive enough, but that's also not everywhere. So that was my point to you.
I don't think UK is too permissive at all, though. There's like those long waiting lists. Maybe his specific doctor was, but like
yeah, we just heard a pretty horrible story.
Trans people and yeah.
I mean, I don't know, because we just heard a pretty bad story about how it was way too permissive. You know, like that seemed pretty bad.
It's too permissive in his case, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. You know, just because you had a not permissive enough experience, that doesn't mean that everywhere is like that, or that everyone's case is like that. So I think the same argument can be made.
I'm not saying it is.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Silver Camaro 78, $2. More proof the NHS sucks. Single payer system bad. Okay, hold on. Silver Camaro 78 for $2. If I had a dream about Lilith pegging me, is it weird?
Was I pegging you with the strap on, or was I pegging you with my actual parts? Because I think that determines. No, I don't think it's weird. The question was it weird? I don't think it's weird. You have a thing for trans women, that's fine.
This guy's simping.
But if he was asking, was it gay? The strap on makes a little bit of difference.
Really? Wait, hold on. So. Hold on. A guy getting fucked by a trans woman with her dick versus a guy getting fucked by a trans woman with her strap on. Is there really a gay difference between those two things?
I guess if no.
I mean, I don't know, man.
Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's a girl's dick, so it's completely straight.
There's no fucking way. I will not accept that logic ever in my entire life. Now,
no. You see, but what if she changes her mind midway? What if it's gender fluid?
She detransitions.
Gender fluid. What if she detransitions
in the middle of the sex? See, this is what I mean. All right, like, a guy having sex with a trans woman. It's not completely gay, but it's also not completely straight. There's something. There's got to be at least a little bit gay in there. It's like
if he sees her as if he just sees her as just a woman and I think that's fine.
Hold on, it's fine because it's fine to be gay. I'm not against being gay.
I don't think it's gay though, because gay guys also don't want to fuck trans women.
There's a penis, Lilith. It's okay.
Yes.
That's okay if there's a penis. It's fine, but it's not 100% straight. It can't be.
I didn't argue with 100% straight. That said, it's maybe a little bit gay.
It's a little bit gay, at least. Hold on. See, this is what I mean. We should just do, the Greek idea where there's no gay or straight, only top or bottom. If you top, you're straight, and if you bottom, you're gay, and that's how it is. That's how
Anybody.
that's how it works, chat.
So anybody you fuck is a woman.
Yes. Anyone you fuck is a woman.
A woman is when you fuck her and she cooks and cleans and brings food like the good old days.
Yes.
Like the way they do it in Greek.
Mm-hmm. That's how you determine pronouns. Is do they fuck or do they get fucked? That's it. Those are the only two pronouns. The only two genders. Okay.
But what? No. But what about two? What about two lesbians and then one is a top?
Well, I mean,
because,
if one
either through they have a strap on or they have a dick.
Well, then they are straight. Yes. So a lesbian fucking a woman with a strap on is straight. But
she's still fucking a woman.
But the woman getting fucked is gay, because in this dichotomy, gay and straight is just top or bottom.
I see.
That's how it works. That's how it works. Let's see here. Tricky Mario for $8. Thank you. Sophia Narwitz has to be one of the best trans voices out there. I love her video on why trans activists are their own worst enemies. I actually like Sophia quite a bit too. She's always a nice person to talk to. She's always really chill.
I don't agree with her on everything, but she's been nice.
Fuzzy Donut, $10. You read a couple of my messages for free, so have some monies. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Let's see. Jordan Rogers for $10. I'm sorry I'm late to react to your abortion debate stream earlier, but your argument is flawed because we don't know when consciousness starts. Your flower/seed analogy is spot on, though. My cutoff is when the nervous system develops. If a fetus can't feel pain, there is no harm done by aborting it. Yeah, but there are animals that can feel pain, and we don't give animals the same moral consideration that we do people, obviously. So I don't think pain works. I do think that we have a general idea of when the brain is developed enough that the structures are in place physically that could have a conscious experience, and that development seems to be like between 16 and 20 weeks, which is why I think personally that abortion between 16 and 20 weeks is probably fine, and abortion after that is probably not fine, and just in terms of the pure morals of it. Is there anything else? I think that's it. That's all the super chats. All right. Billo says, yeah, but they're not human. It's the thing. That wasn't a are they human argument. That was a do they feel pain argument. And I don't think a do they feel pain argument matters because animals can clearly feel pain.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. So that was a pretty good conversation. I wouldn't mind talking to Richie again someday because that was quite interesting. There was one thing that we got into in private that we didn't get into during the stream, which I don't mind revealing, so it's not that big of a secret. But I know that one of the reasons, like Richie does not want his story to be used by people on the right, but he also doesn't want to isolate himself from the right, because sometimes de-radicalizing people who just fucking like hate trans women and want to use his story, sometimes de-radicalizing them slowly is also worth it. And I also agree with that too,
I don't think he's de-radicalizing them at all, though. I think he might be de-radicalizing them against views of detransitioners, but I don't think he has a very positive view of trans people at all.
What do you mean? That was a great conversation, and I think he had a pretty positive view of your situation. I genuinely think so, yes.
I don't think so. I think he was rather hostile when it comes to my own experiences.
Were we on the same stream? I don't think he was. I think he's like, listen, he didn't attack you for having the experience that you did or saying it wasn't valid. I think it was. Why do you think he was hostile?
Well, he did call it a fantasy La La Land.
I think that was a joke, and I think he said that was a joke too.
No. Well, it is.
Hold on, another super chat. Fuzzy Donut for $5. That was all the super chats. Okay, thanks, man. Thanks for the final super chat.
Thank you.
I you know what, I think that was a fine conversation, and maybe if you feel bad about it because like afterwards, I would recommend rewatching it, Lilith, because I think it was actually fine. If you can find a spot where Richie was rude to you, I'll listen to it and I'll back you up. But I think it was actually a fine conversation.
If that joke really was no harm done, then I have no problem with most of it. We were a bit combative at some point, but hey. It's what happens when people disagree, right?
Yeah. All right. I got to get out of here. It's time for dinner. And then I got to get back to work on Kenobi. That's all. I'm just going back to Kenobi for the next 6 hours. That's all I'm doing. I'm doing nothing else.
All right.
All right. See you later, guys. Have a good one.